Chapter 457. Ha ha ha, chi. Chen Hao's arrogant words made Mo Wu Xian laugh in anger. The aura around his body was also released unscrupulously. The monstrous demon chi filled half the sky in an instant, and formed an equal force with Chen Hao's aura. Faintly, Mo Wu Xian had the upper hand. Soul Fighter, as the #1 genius disciple of the Broken Heart Hall of the Limitless Demon Palace, was outstanding in terms of talent, combat strength, and aptitude. During the genius battle, he had the ability to challenge people above his level. He was much stronger than Jiang Hai, the #1 disciple of the Limitless Immortal Palace's Cold Plum Hall. And at this moment, he was angered by Chen Hao. The pressure and aura he displayed proved all this. All the disciples of the Limitless Demon Palace, more than 300,000 cultivators of the Demon Path, and Immortal Path, looked at Soul Fighter in horror. You're only at the early stage of the creation realm. I'd like to see what ability you have to be so arrogant. Ha ha ha. Soul Fighter's aura surged, and the fear in his heart was instantly cut off. He stared coldly at Chen Hao and said, "If you die, they can still be my maids and drag out an ignoble existence. And now, since you're here, then all of you can die for me. Ha ha ha. I'll make you watch helplessly as they perish. Ha ha ha. I hope your strength is stronger than your mouth. Otherwise, you don't even have the qualifications to fight with me. According to the agreement, let's begin. Kill them all without mercy. Kill without mercy. Okay. Boom. One of the 19 young experts besides Soul Fighter suddenly rushed to the central area where the heavenly rivers of the three realms intersected. These disciples were all Soul Fighter's assistants in the various halls of the Limitless Demon Palace. Although they were much weaker than Soul Fighter, they were still at the peak of the late stage of the creation realm. How could they be afraid of Chen Hao, who was only at the early stage of the creation realm? What's more, including the Demon Path disciples who were fishing in troubled waters, there were a total of 27 people. They could wear Chen Hao and the other 4 to death. What was there to be afraid of? Be careful. Chen Hao looked at Tan Tai Lian and transmitted his voice. Okay. Hiss. Boom. Tan Tai Lian, who was dressed in a pink dress, flew towards the intersection of the heavenly rivers of the three realms like a burning flame. Among the 4 girls, her battle prowess was the weakest, but she was the one who worked the hardest to cultivate. However, this was only a comparison between the 4 women. Among the 4 women, no matter who it was, they were all rare geniuses in the Wuji Immortal Palace. Even though they were only at the peak of the initial stage of the manifestation realm, the inheritance of the phoenix, as well as Tan Tai Lian's powerful vital essence control, allowed her to possess strength that was comparable to geniuses at the peak of the late stage of the manifestation realm. Moreover, at this moment, she still had a set of middle-grade spiritual treasures that was comparable to upper-grade spiritual treasures and contained powerful functions that had not been exposed. It was precisely because of this that Chen Hao dared to send Tan Tai Lian out. Ha ha ha. Beauty, you didn't have to die. But now, he had no choice but to ruthlessly destroy the flower, even though it was a ruined flower. Ha ha ha. The demonic Dao disciple stared at Tan Tai Lian, his eyes filled with lust as he spoke in an unbridled manner. The people of the Devil Dao, except for those who practiced orthodox cultivation methods, could basically see through the existence of a woman's primordial yin at a glance. As for Tan Tai Lian, she was already a serious woman. Therefore, at this moment, this fellow naturally wanted to use the most vicious words to infuriate Tan Tai Lian. Unfortunately, Ga. Huff. Huff, what welcomed him was scorching hot heavenly fire. Ninefold heavenly fire. Unfortunately, you are only at the peak of the initial stage of the manifestation realm. If you were at the late stage of the manifestation realm, I would really be afraid. Break for me. Rumble. The demonic Dao disciple clearly knew about Tan Tai Lian. Facing the terrifying ninefold heavenly fire, he did not show the slightest bit of fear. He struck out with his palm and advanced instead of retreating. The protective vital essence around him condensed into powerful energy that forcefully blocked the heavenly fire. The curtains to an intense battle immediately opened. Apart from those who already knew about Tan Tai Lien, the people from the three sides were all shocked. Her opponent was a genius disciple of the Wuji Immortal Palace, but Tan Tai Lien was not at a disadvantage even though she was 2 small realms below him. The 9 heavens fire that filled the sky was like a sea of fire from purgatory. Under her powerful control, it condensed into numerous profound and terrifying formations. The power that was released caused countless old men at the peak of the late stage of Blessed Realm to be shocked and terrified. The ones who were most affected were none other than the sect master and grand supreme elders of the Eastern Continent's Immortal Dao sect. In the intersect competition more than 3 years ago, Tan Tai Lien was merely a very talented but low-level young girl in their eyes. But today, the power she displayed already left them in the dust. You are indeed difficult to deal with. Then I'll let you experience my true power. Condense. Qi. Qi. The demonic Dao disciple used a full 5 minutes but still could not do anything to Tan Tai Lien. Finally, he could not help but begin to condense his ultimate move. Die. Boom. Ah. How is that possible? At that moment, countless exclamations erupted from the 3 sides. They originally thought that the demonic Dao disciple, who was about to condense his ultimate move, would definitely display an absolute advantage in terms of realms and defeat Tan Tai Lien. But what they did not expect was that Tan Tai Lien did not give him a chance. The demonic Dao disciple had deliberately opened up a distance of 10,000 feet between the two of them. He had enough time to condense his ultimate move, but at that moment, when Tan Tai Lien spat out the word, die, a dazzling red light suddenly shone under her feet. The aura of the middle-grade numinous treasure battle boots shone out, and 2 flames that were 1,000 feet long gushed out. They were like 2 long tails. There was nothing profound about them, just the purest explosion of energy. However, they instantly increased Tan Tai Lien's speed by more than 10 times. She became one with her sword. Her essence, qi, and soul were completely gathered at the tip of her sword. It was like a laser. Ah! A shrill and terrified scream erupted. Splat! Boom! A cloud of blood exploded, and it was immediately reduced to ashes by the terrifyingly high temperature of the 9-fold heavenly fire. The demonic Dao disciple at the peak of the late stage of the manifestation realm disappeared without a trace. Only the fallen sword and storage ring remained in the eyes of the crowd. There was a burnt smell in the air. At that moment, the army of more than 300,000 people was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. No one had expected this. Even Xia Lingfeng and the others who knew that Tan Tai Lien had a middle-grade spiritual treasure set did not expect that a pair of combat boots would have such an unexpected effect. It had forcefully turned the opponent's secret skill into a fatal blow. Good. Good kill. Ha ha ha, good kill. Someone from the Immortal Dao sect took the lead to cheer. Immediately, nearly 40,000 people from the Immortal Dao sect erupted into thunderous cheers. Sneak attack with a numinous treasure. What kind of skill is that? A grand, old, and cold voice suddenly rang out from the void. It was not loud, but what was shocking was that it directly suppressed the cheers of tens of thousands of people. The moment he heard the voice, Chen Hao's expression changed, and he looked up at the sky. Ah, welcome, ancestor. When the first leader of the 10 demonic Dao sects heard the voice, he was obviously very shocked and pleasantly surprised. He suddenly looked up at the void, cupped his fists, and bowed respectfully. Half-step human immortal. He's a half-step human immortal. Who is he? Chen Hao looked at Xia Lingfeng, who was shocked and frowning. The first leader of the demonic Dao sect in the East Continent 300 years ago, and also the most powerful expert, Yi Tian Xie Qing. I didn't expect him to be a half-step human immortal. Yi Tian Xie Qing, half-step human immortal. Phew. Chen Hao took a deep breath. Originally, the only pressure he felt was not pressure. It was just that he was worried that Yi Tianxia would break the agreement and start the war between the three realms. However, Chen Hao believed that as long as he had a little bit of time, he could use his endless numinous treasures and his personal strength to make Yi Tianxia die even more miserably. However, Chen Hao did not want that kind of ending. After all, no matter how powerful a person was, there was a limit to it. At that time, no matter if it was the immortal Tao, demon Tao, or demon Tao, there would be rivers of blood, and the people would be plunged into misery and suffering. How could he be willing to do something that would cause the mortals to suffer when the immortals fought? However, that possibility was very small, because he already had a strategy. But now, the appearance of a half-step human immortal made Chen Hao feel a great challenge. Humph. Yi Tianxia snorted coldly and slowly landed in front of the demonic Tao army. He had red hair, red beard, and red eyebrows. His eyes were a terrifying blood red. But the most terrifying thing was his face. Half of his face was wrinkled, like an old man with one foot in the grave, giving off a strong sense of death. The other half was smooth and delicate, containing a boundless vitality. This was because this old man was at the end of his lifespan. But he was very lucky and broke through to the half-step human immortal stage at this critical moment, giving him a new lease of life. If he could trigger the heavenly punishment and successfully pass the tribulation, he would return to his normal appearance and gain 3,000 years of lifespan. This gambling battle is a battle between the demonic Tao and the young disciples of the immortal Tao. The fight for the genius fate must be built on true strength. Who gave you the guts to use your middle-grade numinous treasures and launch a sneak attack? Yi Tianxia exuded billowing demonic qi and swept towards the immortal Tao people. His scarlet eyes locked onto Xia Lingfeng. Xia Lingfeng was furious and wanted to refute. But what shocked him was that his opponent's terrifying aura went straight into the depths of his mind. For a moment, he could not speak. Boom! At this moment, Chen Hao stepped out and stood in front of Xia Lingfeng. His aura did not increase, but his dark eyes were like two sharp swords, piercing through Yi Tianxia's aura. Where did this old dog come from? A half-dead thing dares to come out and spout nonsense? Open your dog eyes and see what is fair. What did you say? Who do you think you are? Who are you to interrupt when the old man is speaking? Yi Tianxia did not expect anyone to refute him and not be afraid of his half-step human immortal aura. More importantly, his aura was not as simple as a half-step human immortal. It was built on the foundation of the heaven-defying evil skill that he cultivated, and its most powerful ability was to intimidate people. And his opponent was just an early-stage manifestation young man. How could he not be angry? Chapter 458. Who do you think you are? You're already so old, yet you can't tell right from wrong. Have you been living in a dog's brain? Where did the rule come from that we can't use spiritual treasures? How retarded can you be to call a head-on battle a sneak attack? Look at your 20 disciples. Which one of you is a direct descendant of the Eastern Continent's demon sect? Fair? Are you even fit to talk about fairness? Chen Hao's words became even more domineering and arrogant. He stared at the other party with disdain and said, if you want to be fair, sure. Kill these 20 idiots from the limitless demon palace for me and use your direct descendants. We guarantee that we won't use any spiritual artifacts. Chen Hao's every word stunned the hundreds of thousands of cultivators present. Xia Lingfeng and the rest of the immortal Tao cultivators were delighted, but everyone was also sweating. That was a half-step human immortal, an existence that could kill a peak late-stage manifestation expert with a wave of his hand. Especially for a 1,000-year-old demon like Oda Shiqing, who had been cultivating his whole life and had been stuck at the peak late-stage manifestation realm for countless years. Whether it was battle experience or secret techniques, he must have reached the peak of perfection. At this moment, he had comprehended the barrier and stepped into the half-step human immortal realm. How powerful would he be? Others might not be able to sense it, but Xia Lingfeng, who was the first to bear the brunt of the pressure, knew very well how powerful this old man was. Presumptuous. Presumptuous. Oda Shicheng's already strange face became even more twisted. He wanted to strangle Chen Hao to death immediately. But he couldn't. At this moment, if he attacked first, it would mean that he had breached the contract. What would that mean? The true outbreak of the Great War of the Immortals and Demons. Although the Immortal Dao only had about 40,000 people, as long as a portion of the experts fled to the demon realm, it would be enough to cause chaos. Although the eastern continent would definitely be in a worse state and was destined to be divided between the demon realm and the demon realm, the consequences would still be unimaginable. If not for this, they would have already gone to war. Why would they force each other to sign a contract? Humph. Soul Fighter snorted in disdain. Originally, when this old man had appeared, he had hoped that he would show off his might. But he didn't expect that not only would he fail to show off his might, he would be angered half to death by Chen Hao's arrogance. Next, no one dares to come. After killing that disciple, Tan Tai Lian stood in the air. Facing the bickering between Chen Hao and the old fart, she was not afraid at all. Her fighting spirit was still burning. At this time, seeing that the old fart was so angry at Chen Hao that he was at a loss for words, she pointed her sword at Soul Fighter and the others and said, "What are you waiting for?" Soul Fighter looked at one of the disciples. They had already decided on the order of appearance. Originally, there was no pressure, but now, there was Chen Hao, a guy who they didn't know how strong he was. In the beginning, these fellows who had not come into contact with Chen Hao did not take a creation stage cultivator seriously. However, at this moment, regardless of whether Chen Hao was a hothead or blindly confident, he was definitely not a simple person since he dared to challenge a half-step human immortal. Now that things have come to this, we have no way out. It's just a middle-grade spirit treasure. As long as you get close to her, you can wear her down with your strength. Don't give her a chance to launch a surprise attack. Fight steadily and surely. Even if you want to form your ultimate move, you have to do it as you fight. You can't use all your energy and true yuan to form your ultimate move. Go! Soul Fighter transmitted his voice. Hiss. As the second disciple appeared, the battle began again. This time, Tan Tai Lian fought extremely hard as her opponent was prepared. Although she managed to kill her opponent in the end, she was severely injured and could not fight anymore. This made Soul Fighter and the others look smug and arrogant once again. However, on the side of the immortal path, Xia Lingfeng and the others who knew the truth were not worried. Instead, they were looking forward to it. This was because Tan Tai Lian had only revealed her middle-grade spirit treasure combat boots from the beginning to the end. Vaguely, the crowd had guessed Chen Hao's purpose. It's your turn. After the demon path eliminated Tan Tai Lian, it was the demon path's turn according to their agreement. The 7 demon path disciples were all at the peak of the late-stage manifestation realm. They were legitimate disciples of the demon path and the top geniuses of the eastern continent's demon path. However, at this moment, all of them looked solemn and fearful before the battle. Even the number 1 person of the 10 demon path sects did not expect the eastern continent's immortal path disciples to be so powerful. Tan Tai Lian, who was the first to appear, was definitely the weakest of the 5, but she had killed 2 demon path disciples. Furthermore, they were geniuses from the limitless demon palace. How could the demon path's geniuses compare? Their advantage in terms of cultivation level was nothing. If there were no accidents, the 7 of them would probably all end up dead. Upon hearing the words of the demon path's number 1 person, the 7 demon path disciples looked at him. The contract has been signed. There's no other way. You only need to go up and go through the motions. If you feel that something is amiss, immediately admit defeat. Anyway, our goal is to reap the benefits. It doesn't matter if we don't reap the benefits. The most important thing is to stay alive. Thank you, sect leader Hu. With the demon path's number 1 person's voice transmission, the 7 disciples' tightly knitted brows relaxed slightly. Who would be willing to go up and die knowing that they were no match for their opponent? Besides, they were still young. Seeing the opponent's character, Chen Hao changed his decision at the last minute. Originally, he arranged for Xia Yuyu to appear, but now, he let Helian Wuzi appear. Chen Hao's task for Helian Wuzi was still to kill 2 limitless Demon Palace disciples. This meant that Helian Wuzi had to defeat all 7 Demon Path disciples before it was possible. This was something that Xia Yuyu could not do. Even if the 7 Demon Path disciples were relatively weak and were fishing in troubled waters, it would still consume a lot of energy in a situation where they could not fight to the death. But Helian Wuzi could. There was no other reason. Helian Wuzi, who had awakened the power of reincarnation and incorporated the mystery of reincarnation into every move, had a recovery speed that was not inferior to Chen Hao's. Her ability to fight for a long time was definitely the strongest among the 4 girls. Little Wu, you don't have to use all your strength to deal with the Demon Path disciples. They won't fight to the death with us. Just defeat them and preserve your strength. When Helian Wuzi appeared, Chen Hao transmitted his voice. The truth was as Chen Hao expected. Trash, trash. You 7 Demon Path disciples can't even take down 1 person, you're all trash. Seeing that the Demon Path disciples were defeated one by one and none of them fought to the death, the number 1 Demon Path disciple was so angry that his teeth itched. Soul Fighter and the rest also had gloomy expressions. It's already good that we can participate in the battle, how can we be considered trash? We 7 disciples are all direct descendants of the Demon Path, how can we be compared to you? Such a difficult task, it's better for you to complete it. If you can't complete it, then you're really trash. The number 1 Demon Path disciple said disdainfully. When he saw Tan Tai Lian's battle, he did not have any thoughts. But now that he saw Helian Wuzi fighting 7 people in a row and was still calm and composed, as if nothing had happened, he faintly felt that something was wrong. He was a little regretful that he got involved in this muddy water. He regretted even more that when Xia Lingfeng asked for an exorbitant condition 3,000 years ago, he did not even think about it and agreed. Now, if he lost, he would have to give up 20 million kilometers of land. Brother Amo, the few of them are very strong in fighting beyond their level. This time, I accepted your invitation to come here to help, but I don't want to lose my life. Just when everyone's gaze was on Soul Fighter and the rest, the disciple who was about to fight frowned and looked at Soul Fighter and said, "That's right. I don't want to die here. If I knew it was so dangerous, I wouldn't have come." This Helian Wuzi fought 7 people in a row. Although they are all trash, but look at her aura now. And that Chen Shui is even more troublesome, and the most troublesome one is Chen Hao. If this goes on, even if we win, I'm afraid more than 10 of us will die. Yes, Brother Amo, it's not that we don't want to help you, but we can't joke with our lives. Didn't that kid just say that we can fight a group battle? If it's a group battle, we will definitely be able to kill all of them with the least losses. Yes. Brother Amo, I will participate in the group battle. If you want me to fight now, I'm sorry, I don't want to die. If you insist, I'd rather admit defeat and deal with it. With one person taking the lead, the others immediately followed suit. Although Soul Fighter was talented and would definitely have amazing achievements in the future, who would be willing to be a stepping stone? It was just that because of Soul Fighter's ruthlessness, no one dared to be the first to say it. But now, after the disciple who was about to fight said it in front of everyone, they no longer had any scruples. Hearing everyone's words, Soul Fighter's expression became extremely ugly. He was vicious and merciless. In his eyes, everyone was just a tool to be used. Naturally, he was most willing to see these guys fight for their lives. But now, everyone's words made him understand that no one was an idiot. If they were really like the 7 disciples of the Demon Tao and didn't put in any effort, casually dealing with them and then admitting defeat, what could he do? Boom! Soul Fighter didn't say a word. He directly released a terrifying aura and flew into the air. Seeing this scene, Chen Hao's lips curled up slightly. Although his sharp senses sensed what the other party was talking about, he couldn't hear the voice transmission. Now that he saw Soul Fighter appear, how could Chen Hao not understand what was going on? Of course, he didn't think that Soul Fighter wanted to fight now. Before he appeared, even if you gave him 10 guts, he wouldn't dare. All this was within Chen Hao's expectations. But he didn't expect that after killing just 2, this bunch of gutless guys couldn't hold on anymore. Humph, Chen Hao, didn't you say you wanted a group battle? I'll agree to it now, so as not to waste time. Let's fight it out with the remaining people from both sides. Chi. I couldn't ask for more. But I'll say this first. Since it's a group battle, as long as one person from either side admits defeat, it's considered a loss. Do you understand what I mean? Chen Hao directly flew into the air and flew to Helian Wuzi's side. His eyes were full of provocation and disdain as he spoke. Don't worry. Today, it's either you or me. Soul Fighter said confidently. After he finished speaking, he looked at the remaining 17 disciples and said, all of you listen carefully. No matter who it is, you have to persevere with me to the end. Otherwise, I'll be the first to kill you. No problem. With just the 4 of them, what do we have to fear if we join forces? Let's go. Boom, 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 in an instant, streams of flowing light flew over as fast as lightning. Soul Fighter took the lead. His whole body was full of violent aura and fighting spirit, surging out. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 459. Qi. Qi. Chen Hao, Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu, and Chen Shui, the 4 of them instantly flew to one place. Each of them was filled with fighting spirit, and the aura around their bodies violently soared. Facing Mo Wuxin's 18 people who were rushing over with monstrous auras, the 4 of them didn't have the slightest bit of fear. The battle was about to break out. Why did he summon his spirit treasure? Xia Lingfeng and the others did not expect Chen Hao to agree to a group battle. What kind of concept was it to fight 18 people with 4 people? However, Xia Lingfeng, Yuan Tairan, and the others who had seen Chen Hao's spirit treasure did not expect that the 4 of them did not summon their spirit treasure. Were they still hiding their strength at this moment? Nearly 1,000 feet away, Soul Fighter's 18 people emitted a terrifying fighting spirit and monstrous demonic aura that swept thousands of miles. 17 super geniuses at the peak of the late stage of the creation realm and Soul Fighter, who was more powerful than the peak of the late stage of the creation realm, burst out at the same time. How powerful was it? At this moment, the disciples representing Wuji Immortal Palace, Demon Palace, and Monster Palace were all aghast. They had to admit that the genius disciples gathered by Soul Fighter were definitely more powerful than them. Not to mention the others, even Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu's expressions became extremely solemn and worried. They understood why Chen Hao had not revealed his spirit treasure set until now. Naturally, it was for the battle with Wuji Immortal Palace and Monster Palace. However, facing 18 people, especially the powerful Soul Fighter, the 4 of them could not form a powerful battle formation. How could they win? You guys kill outside. Qi. Seeing that they were only 1,000 feet away, Chen Hao suddenly transmitted his voice to the 3 girls. At the same time, his whole body was like a sharp sword, rushing toward the 18 people at a terrifying speed. Huh? The 3 girls were shocked. What is this guy doing? Is he courting death? Seeing this scene, everyone's eyes widened in surprise. In a chaotic battle, when there was a great disparity in numbers, the best way was for the 4 of them to work together and fight side by side. However, Chen Hao took the lead and rushed toward the 18 people. In everyone's eyes, this was simply a retard. Wasn't this asking for trouble? Come on, kill them for me. Soul Fighter was startled at first, but then he was overjoyed. Die! Die! Following Soul Fighter's words, the 18 people instantly burst into loud shouts, and one by one, they launched an incomparably powerful attack. The sword light seemed to interweave into a sword net that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. In a flash, it completely enveloped Chen Hao, who was rapidly flying over. Split. Just as the sword was about to reach him, Chen Hao's figure instantly split into 5. The 5 figures stopped in an instant and brandished their swords to attack. Boom boom boom, a terrifying explosion and devastating energy swept out in an instant. Just this momentum alone was enough to shock the hundreds of thousands of onlookers. Kill. Just at this moment, Chen Hao, Helian Wuzi, and Xia Yuyu also charged over. Although they were also shocked and didn't understand the purpose of Chen Hao's actions, they didn't go against Chen Hao's intentions in the slightest. They believed that since Chen Hao did this, he would naturally be able to bear it. Chen Shue's attack was the incomparably fierce platinum sky-splitting slash, which contained the will of the destruction sword Dao. Helian Wuzi stabbed out with her sword. It was as if a clear and cold full moon had risen in the sky, causing the surrounding thousands of square meters to seem to be enveloped in a layer of ice-cold frost. It was still the moonlight sword that Chen Hao had given her, but the degree of compatibility with her at this moment couldn't be compared to back then. Within the clear and cold sword light, it contained the most mysterious power of reincarnation between heaven and earth. Xia Yuyu's sword was the hidden attribute, the will of the heartless sword Dao. During the Eastern Continent's Immortal Dao Sect competition, she only used it twice at the very end. At this moment, her heartless sword Dao was actually a level higher than Chen Shue's destruction sword Dao. Her clear and beautiful eyes no longer contained any emotions. At this moment, the main firepower was concentrated on Chen Hao. However, although Chen Shue, Helian Wuzi, and Xia Yuyu were attacking from the periphery and displayed their strongest strength, it was impossible for them to succeed in one move. After all, none of the opponents were weak. Without a tough battle, it would be difficult to kill them. However, fuck. You pushed. Ah. Who pushed? Puff. 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 The 3 disciples who blocked Chen Shue, Helian Wuzi, and Xia Yuyu let out angry roars one by one. However, before they could finish, they stopped abruptly. 3 streaks of sword light pierced through the 3 people's foreheads, killing them instantly. The 3 people's eyes were filled with anger and surprise, but they were not looking at the 3 girls, but at their companions beside them. Endless resentment, endless frustration, and endless anger, the moment their consciousness disappeared, they were still thinking, why did you push me? Why? They could obviously block the opponent's attack, but because of the sudden burst of energy fluctuations from the guy beside them, there was a deviation in their attack. In a battle between experts, the slightest difference could lead to a huge difference, which directly led to their death. Chen Shue, Helian Wuzi, and Xia Yuyu succeeded in one move, but they were not surprised. Instead, their eyes shone with deep confusion and surprise. What was going on? How could it be so easy to succeed? Fuck you, do you know how to fight together? Don't affect me. Why are you squeezing me with your energy? You're obviously the one who's affecting me. Everyone saw an extremely comical scene. This was obviously a life and death battle, and it was a group battle, but 3 of Soul Fighter's 18 people were killed by the 3 girls in an instant. What was even more comical was that when the 3 people died, as well as now, a war of words broke out among Soul Fighter's group, and they were all cursing the people beside them. What was this called? It was like a group of mobs who had not undergone any coordination training. They fought together, but before they could even pose a threat to the enemy, they were already in disarray. Something's wrong, everyone, spread out. Initially, Soul Fighter Mo was also looking angrily at the disciples beside him. However, when he saw that everyone was doing the same thing, Soul Fighter Mo's expression became extremely fearful. They were all experts at the peak of the late stage of the manifestation realm. Although they had never worked together before, they were basically working together in a battle. How could everyone make mistakes? This was absolutely impossible. A bunch of idiots. You call yourselves geniuses of the limitless demon palace, but you're almost scared to death by me, right? You actually made a mistake when you attacked, ha ha ha. Combine. Chen Hao's mocking laughter, filled with disdain, came out from the terrifying energy explosion. The 5 figures suddenly combined into one, and after breaking the first wave of the most terrifying joint attack, he violently pointed at Soul Fighter. No one knew that the 5 figures combined into one was still Chen Hao's doppelganger. His real body had long been hidden near Qin Shui, Helian Wuzi, and Xia Yuyu. After stepping into the blessed realm, his ability to restrain his aura and merge with all things in the world had an astonishing increase. Even if Soul Fighter had the God's Eye, he could not sense the existence of Chen Hao's real body. What was Chen Hao's real body doing? He was using the 1000 transformation profound art, which was most suitable for a chaotic battle. He was doing it very covertly and restrained. If Soul Fighter and the others could stop urging their energy and calm down to sense it, they would naturally be able to capture the profound 1000 transformation profound art. But at this moment, in the midst of a great battle, the energy was wreaking havoc, the monstrous devil Qi, and Chen Hao's doppelganger had deliberately simulated the 1000 transformation profound art's aura to conceal it, causing them to be unable to sense any abnormalities. They all thought that it was because of the suppression of the energy of the people around them, which led to the failure. Boom boom boom, in panic, Soul Fighter and the others faced the threat of death and crazily raised their energy to the peak state. Moreover, they quickly distanced themselves from each other. Layers of sword shadows, all kinds of profound and powerful attacks, blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Some people were covering for others, and some people were condensing their ultimate moves. The real peak battle had only officially begun at this moment. The 3 women were always on the periphery, not daring to enter the middle of Soul Fighter and the others, while Chen Hao arrogantly rushed into the crowd, killing left and right, constantly closing in on Soul Fighter. Puff puff, every few minutes, someone would be beheaded. But the injuries that Chen Hao and the others suffered were also shocking. And this was after Chen Hao secretly used the 1000 transformation spell to slightly change the situation of the opponent's attacks. But Chen Hao and the others, who were bathed in blood, became more and more courageous as they fought. Soul Fighter and the others were more and more frightened. Kill, kill, kill for me! Soul Fighter roared crazily. At least half of the injuries that Chen Hao and the others suffered were caused by this guy's attacks. It had to be said that Soul Fighter's strength was indeed incomparably strong. Although the opponent's numbers were decreasing, the situation was becoming more and more unfavorable for Chen Hao and the others. Xia Lingfeng and the others from the Immortal Dao sect were incomparably nervous, and even more puzzled. At this point, why did Chen Hao and the others not use their full set of spirit treasures, and were bitterly holding on? In just over 10 minutes, whether it was spirit or inner yuan, everyone could see that Chen Hao and the others had consumed a lot of energy. It looked like they would not be able to hold on for much longer, and would be killed by the opponent. Boss is so insidious, and so hateful. Wang Wenxiu gazed at Chen Hao who was fighting, and there was no trace of worry on his face. Instead, there was a trace of excitement as he transmitted his voice to Jiang Hai. Yes, the 3 sisters-in-law are also ruthless. It's not easy to pretend to be like this, and they are seriously injured. It seems that Boss can no longer tolerate Soul Fighter and the other disciples of Limitless Demon Palace. This time, none of them will be able to leave the Eastern continent alive, of course. But I don't think the chaos at the beginning was because Soul Fighter and the others were too stupid. It must be Boss's doing. Ah! Seeing that there were only 7 people left around him, and that each and every one of them was gathering towards him with fear and unwillingness, Soul Fighter knew that he could not wait any longer. With a long howl that resounded through the heavens and earth, Demon Qi suddenly surged out from his body. His howl was mournful, as if he was enduring endless pain and torment. His handsome face twisted with jealousy, and in an instant, a pitch-black tentacle emerged from between his eyebrows. Every tentacle contained a monstrous evil aura and endless mysteries. Puff, 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 ah, a series of miserable screams suddenly erupted. What shocked everyone was that the black tentacles that came out from between Soul Fighter's eyebrows directly penetrated the foreheads of the 7 people around him. Chapter 460. No one had expected Soul Fighter to be so cold-blooded, heartless, and cruel. At that moment, the 7 men's eyes were filled with fear, pain, and boundless anger. They wanted to struggle, they wanted to resist, they wanted to curse, but it was too late. Who would have thought that Mo Wu Xian would make a move on them? If they were even a little bit prepared, their souls and wills would not have been restrained and their bodies controlled by Soul Fighter. The terrifying devouring power invaded the depths of their souls and controlled their bodies and souls. The only thing they could feel was boundless pain and the rapid destruction of their wills. In an instant, the 7 people's pupils lost focus. Their bodies trembled violently and shrank. Their life force, true essence, chi, and spirit were all being devoured by the black tentacles at a terrifying speed and surged into Soul Fighter's body. Boom! Soul Fighter's robe instantly swelled into a ball and exploded. His long hair raged in the wind, and his body spewed out waves of destructive and violent energy. Boom 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 boom, boom boom boom, a series of explosions began to spread from Soul Fighter's body in all directions. The space between heaven and earth seemed to be unable to withstand such a violent energy, causing terrifying spatial explosions. Dark spatial cracks appeared, causing hundreds of thousands of people to cry out in alarm. In the blink of an eye, the 7 peak late manifestation stage disciples who had been drained of their energy were directly turned into dust. And Soul Fighter, who had cruelly used the devil's sex devouring technique on his 7 companions, his aura soared to an extremely terrifying level. Ha ha ha, boom boom boom, Soul Fighter looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. With his laughter, the void rumbled, and the world shook. All the cultivators within a radius of thousands of miles could not bear this kind of pressure. One by one, they hurriedly activated their protective Jin Yuan. Xia Lingfeng and the other masters of the 3 forces who were watching from a close distance could not help but retreat one after another. Half-step human immortal, no, beyond that. He's close to a human immortal. How is this possible? What kind of technique is this? At this moment, even the half-step human immortal Noda Xie Qing revealed an extremely shocked expression. His eyes were filled with fear and passion as he looked at Soul Fighter. Chen Hao was also extremely shocked in his heart. He suddenly sent out 3 rays of energy to envelop Qin Shui, Helian Wuzi and Xia Yuyu, blocking in front of the 3 of them. Chen Hao could clearly sense that Soul Fighter's strength and aura had surpassed that of a half-step human immortal. He was even stronger than the half-step human immortal old dog. It's useless. There is only life and death in this battle. All of you must die. Ha ha ha. You forced my hand, 800 years. I burned 800 years of my lifespan. Ha ha ha. You forced me to do this. I will make you wish you were dead, ha 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 ha. Soul Fighter said in a deranged manner. His voice was filled with boundless hatred and sorrow. Yes, it was solemn and moving. Burning 800 years of his lifespan had almost exhausted his life force. However, compared to the backlash of using this secret technique, it was insignificant. After all, with his talent, he only needed a few more years to break through to the human immortal stage and gain a long lifespan again. The real fatal thing was that the backlash of using this secret technique would cause irreparable damage to his soul. It would directly affect the speed of his cultivation in the future. He might not even be able to break through to the human immortal stage. This was the real reason why he was helpless. If he could not break through to the human immortal stage, how many more years could he live? However, Chen Hao's strength had forced him to this step. He could only watch as the people around him fell one by one. Although they were already seriously injured, they were still fighting bravely. He knew that he could not rely on luck anymore. Otherwise, he would face the end of his life. Soul Fighter was in the air, laughing maniacally as he walked step by step towards Chen Hao. With every step he took, the surrounding space began to explode. He stared coldly at Chen Hao. Ha ha ha. Are you afraid? I am now infinitely close to the human immortal stage. Human immortal stage. Even an ordinary human immortal stage is useless in front of me. Ha ha ha. Do you want to admit defeat? It's useless to admit defeat. No one can stop me from killing you. Ha ha ha. Don't worry, I will let you watch your beloved women die in my hands. Not only will I kill them, but I will also strip them and let hundreds of thousands of people here enjoy their naked bodies. Ha ha ha. It's a pity that there are too many people here. Otherwise, I wouldn't mind putting on a show in front of you. Shut up. Boom. Soul Fighter's increasingly vicious and shameless words made Chen Hao stop hesitating. In everyone's opinion, Chen Hao's silence was because he was afraid. Even Soul Fighter thought so. But what was the truth? Chen Hao was just hesitating whether to expose his real strength. Once exposed, the following battle with the limitless Demon Palace and the Demon Palace would not be able to achieve the expected results. This was also the reason why he, Qin Shui, Helian Wuzi, and Xia Yuyu did not use the middle-grade spiritual treasure set. They would rather be seriously injured. But at this moment, Chen Hao had no choice but to expose himself. Soul Fighter was able to use such a powerful and abnormal secret method, which was completely beyond his expectations and control. With Chen Hao's thunderous roar, a bright seven-colored light rose from his body. His seven-colored boots spurted out two shockwaves that were thousands of feet long. His whole body rushed like a cannonball towards Soul Fighter, who was enjoying the pleasure of hunting. Chen Shui, Helian Wuzi, and Xia Yuyu's bodies simultaneously emitted resplendent rays of light, but they didn't advance. Instead, they retreated at top speed until they reached the edge of the intersection of the three realms' heavenly rivers. Only then did they stop with nervous expressions. They knew that the battle between Chen Hao and Soul Fighter at this moment was far beyond what they could bear. They could not help at all. Spiritual treasure set. So, this is your trump card? Ha ha ha. Soul Fighter said disdainfully. He was still laughing wildly. But in his heart, he secretly rejoiced that he was wise and powerful. If he had not decisively used the secret method, he was afraid that he would have really died. But now, with his strength comparable to the human celestial stage, the middle-grade spiritual treasure set was nothing. In the face of absolute power, any spiritual treasure was just a worldly object, which could not withstand a single blow. Get out of here. Boom. Soul Fighter violently slapped out his palm. He did not even use his sword. Since he had said so, how could he let Chen Hao die first? This secret method lasted for 15 minutes. In his opinion, it was enough time for him to humiliate Chen Hao to the extreme before he died. Only in this way could he vent the boundless hatred in his heart. Thousand changes Xian force, condense. Boom. Chen Hao, who was rushing towards Soul Fighter like a cannonball, saw the big hand that Soul Fighter had sent out. In an instant, his whole body surged with a mysterious aura. The energy within thousands of feet suddenly showed a scene of a group of demons dancing wildly, with Chen Hao as the core, including Soul Fighter. Field. Thousands of feet of field. Hundreds of thousands of onlookers saw the scene that suddenly appeared in the void. With Chen Hao as the core, it seemed to be an independent space from heaven and earth. Their eyes widened in horror. If that was not a field, then what was it? Domain was a powerful innate ability, and it was something that all cultivators yearned for even in their dreams. Field had nothing to do with one's realm. Although the higher the realm, the higher the probability of activating the field talent, and the more cultivators who could control the field. But the premise was that one had to have the field talent. Just like Fujikawa, who Chen Hao and Qin Shui met in the ancient Dark Wind Cave. Fujikawa was the only cultivator Chen Hao had met who could control the field talent. Break for me. Rumble. Soul Fighter sensed that his power was pulled away by a mysterious aura and deviated from Chen Hao's body. He frowned slightly. In an instant, he determined that Chen Hao, this abnormal guy, had mastered the field talent. However, he was only slightly surprised. Although he knew that his power had deviated from Chen Hao's, he did not stop. Instead, he suddenly urged his palm to become even more violent. The terrible explosion passed through thousands of meters and tore the endless void. It was not until the black hole-like crack swallowed all the energy that it disappeared. Huh. However, at this moment, whether it was Soul Fighter or the onlookers, they were all surprised and puzzled. How is this possible? It obviously penetrated the field talent. How can it still exist? Soul Fighter felt that his body was a little out of control. If his strength was not close to the human immortal stage at this moment, he was afraid that he would have lost control. This was absolutely impossible. After all, once the field talent was broken by absolute power, it would explode and cease to exist. And the cultivator who was mentally connected to the field talent would be seriously injured. But at this moment, Chenhao's field talent had obviously been broken by Soul Fighter's violent palm, but the power of the field talent still existed. Moreover, Chenhao, who was flying rapidly, was not affected at all. How was this possible? The hundreds of thousands of onlookers did not feel Soul Fighter's body, but they could see that the independent field talent still existed and was not destroyed by Soul Fighter's penetrating energy. It was a long story, but in fact, it was just a flash of lightning. Die for me. Seeing Chenhao's terrifying sword attack, Soul Fighter knew that it was absolutely impossible to trample on Chen Shui and the other two. Chi 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 chi. In an instant, countless terrifying beams of sword light flew towards Chenhao. Even though he was restricted by Chenhao's Xian field, the feeling of power brought about by the forceful increase in his cultivation level did not cause his confidence to swell. Furthermore, in this short moment, he had already sensed the direction of the Xian field. Therefore, he was absolutely confident that he could kill Chenhao with his sword. But, idiot, I want to see who's going to die. Chenhao's cold and arrogant voice caused Mo Wuxian's mind to be greatly alarmed. The dozens of sword lights that he had shot out originally contained the power to resist Chenhao's profound energy field, but the moment they were about to reach him, that mysterious power suddenly reversed, causing all the sword lights that he had shot out to deviate at an even faster speed in the opposite direction from where they were originally supposed to be. The power he had sent out to resist Chenhao's field talent had instead become the power to change the direction of his attack. Chapter 461. Qi. When Chenhao was only 1,000 feet away from Soul Fighter, he suddenly twisted his body and stabbed forward with his sword. The seven-colored sword light was condensed to the extreme, containing all kinds of mysterious auras and destructive sword intent. Boom! Soul Fighter, who was in shock, waved his sword the moment the sword reached him. The absolute power of the human immortal realm shattered Chenhao's attack without any suspense. However, even though he looked relaxed, he was actually drenched in cold sweat. That was because he had launched a large-scale attack at close range. If not for that, the direction of the energy he had launched would definitely have been changed by the strange and ever-changing force field. At this time, Soul Fighter was finally a little worried. 15 minutes, I only have 15 minutes. No matter what, I have to kill this boy and the 3 girls in a few minutes. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable. I have to get close. Chi. Soul Fighter suddenly rushed towards Chenhao with his sword. He did not even launch an attack. He knew very well that an attack from 1,000 feet away would be a waste of energy. Only in close combat could he reduce the effect of Chenhao's mysterious force field to the minimum. Although that also meant the most dangerous, did he have a way out at this moment? Ha ha ha. Are you afraid? Chi. At this moment, Chenhao let out a wild laugh. When they saw Soul Fighter's figure rushing towards them, everyone thought that Chenhao would rush towards him. After all, Chenhao had not been afraid of death and looked like he was going to fight Soul Fighter to the death. But at this moment, not only did Chenhao not approach Soul Fighter, he actually moved away from him. Don't think that I don't know what kind of evil skill you're using. It's nothing more than an evil side branch of the great devouring skill of the 3,000 great ways. How long can you last? 15 minutes at most? Ha ha ha. The evil you bring upon yourself is the hardest to bear. Who will suffer a fate worse than death? We'll know the result soon. What? How do you know? Soul Fighter's body flew quickly, twisting and turning. Although he was still chasing Chen Hao, he was more or less like a headless fly. Just this alone was enough to make him incomparably terrified. No matter what, he had never imagined that Chen Hao's force field would be so profound. It was ever-changing and had no pattern to speak of. If it wasn't for the fact that his absolute strength was much stronger than Chen Hao's, he would probably have become a toy for Chen Hao to play with. Chen Hao could toss him around and play with him however he wanted. But now, Chen Hao had actually pointed out the origin of his secret technique. This was something he had obtained by chance when he was at the late-stage primordial spirit realm, during a training trip arranged by the limitless demon palace on an extraterrestrial desolate star. He had obtained one of the most powerful ultimate techniques of the 3000 Great Tao, the Great Devouring Technique. It was also because of the orthodox practice of the Great Devouring skill that he was able to improve much faster than Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu and reach the blessed realm in advance. However, it was a pity that he was only able to learn a little bit of the Great Devouring Technique that he had been practicing. Today, he was forced to use the Great Devouring Technique by burning his lifespan as he was forced to do so. As for how severe the consequences were, there were detailed records in the cultivation technique. But he still activated it. The biggest drawback was that there was a time limit. However, at this moment, Chen Hao had actually pointed it out. Are you surprised? I also know that after 15 minutes, you will be like a half-dead dog. Not only will your soul be severely injured, but all your true essence will also dissipate. To put it bluntly, although you won't lose your life, you will be a good-for-nothing. The genius you once were is no longer a genius. Ha! I really want to see what kind of torture a heartless scum like you, who treats his own people so cruelly and mercilessly, will receive after you become a good-for-nothing. It must be very exciting, right? Chen Hao, whose body was shining with a 7-colored light, maintained a constant distance from Soul Fighter like a bolt of lightning. On his handsome face, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, filled with an evil charm and arrogance. It's a pity that they won't have the chance. Because I will personally cut off your dog head. Your primordial spirit will be destroyed. Impossible. Impossible, so what if it's 15 minutes? I am now a human immortal. Human immortal, die, I want you to die. Ah! Soul Fighter went completely crazy. Chen Hao's words were like a magic spell that shook people's hearts. Not only did he expose the secret technique that Soul Fighter had used, he also clearly stated the consequences of the secret technique. Geniuses were no longer geniuses. What would happen to a person like him, who had the heart of a wolf and lungs of a dog, who didn't have the slightest bit of humanity? Just from the fact that he had devoured 7 of his companions, who were at the peak of the late stage of manifestation stage, one could imagine the consequences. These 7 people were also geniuses. They were also outstanding figures in the various halls of Limitless Demon Palace. Not to mention that there were senior brothers and sisters among the 40 disciples of Limitless Demon Palace. Even if there weren't, after today, Soul Fighter's fate would be very miserable. This was all because Chen Hao had exposed his secret. If the crowd didn't know, they would be shocked by his powerful talent and abnormal secret technique. Perhaps they would continue to curry favor with him. But now that they knew, it was impossible. Boom boom boom, Soul Fighter attacked Chen Hao continuously without caring about the cost. Unfortunately, the more agitated he was, the faster his energy was consumed. Chen Hao calmly maintained his distance and dodged his attacks. If Soul Fighter hadn't lost his mind, he would have definitely stopped. But now, he was like a resentful woman who had been molested by Chen Hao. There was only one thought in his mind, and that was to kill Chen Hao as fast as he could. Kill him. The expressions of the cultivators in the devil world and demon world changed. Especially some ambitious sect leaders. What did this scene mean? It meant that Soul Fighter was going to lose. The devil world and demon world were going to lose. It meant that the territory of 20 million li would become the territory of the immortal Tao. The Fortune Gate, Sky Sword Sect, and floating mist sect leaders who had colluded with the devil world were even more embarrassed. Their bodies began to tremble, and they were almost scared to death. Even in their dreams, they didn't expect Chen Hao and the others to be so powerful. With just 5 people, they were able to turn the tide. What kind of concept was this? Once the devil world lost this battle, according to the agreement, all the people who had betrayed the 3 sects would become the captives of the immortal Tao. How bad would the consequences be? Boom. At this time, the half-step human immortal Noda Xie Qing suddenly snorted coldly. Without any warning, he soared into the sky. Monstrous demonic chi surged towards Chen Hao. Seeing that soul fighter was struggling like a headless fly, the devil world and demon world had already realized the outcome. Everyone in the devil world looked at the old monster Noda Xie Qing. Countless people even sent out messages of inquiry. Because they couldn't afford to lose. Yes, at this moment, not only had they lost all their face, they couldn't accept the loss of 20 million li of territory. One had to know that 20 million li of territory was moving along the 3 realms galaxy into their territory. How many square kilometers was that? How many sects were involved in it? How many resources would disappear? Since they had already lost all their face, they might as well shed all pretense of cordiality and shamelessly start a war between the immortal Tao, demon Tao, and demon Tao. This would mean that the eastern continent would be reshuffled and realigned. However, everyone was most afraid of Chen Hao. Once the war broke out, they had to kill Chen Hao first. Otherwise, with such a freak, who could stop him even if he barged into the devil world and demon world? Who could kill him? No one. That would be everyone's nightmare. Especially since Chen Hao was still very young. He was only in the early stage of the manifestation realm. His cultivation would improve in a short period of time. Because of this, everyone looked at Noda Xie Qing. Because only he had the ability to kill Chen Hao. As long as Chen Hao was killed, although the others were still a big threat, they wouldn't be afraid. After some time, they would definitely be able to kill all the experts of the immortal Tao and completely erase the immortal Tao from the eastern continent. Clang clang clang. Boom boom boom, as Noda Xie Qing stood up, the demon Tao cultivators unsheathed their swords. Their auras surged out violently. However, before they received the order to attack, they could only hold back. Old man, you dare to go against the contract? Chen Hao's cold voice rang out. The thing he was most worried about had happened. Originally, the probability of it happening was very small. Because he was confident that he could use his own strength to deter the experts of the demon Tao and demon Tao. However, Noda Xie Qing's unexpected appearance had increased the probability of a war breaking out countless times. Contract? The old man has stepped into the half-step human immortal realm. He has already surpassed the boundaries of the eastern continent's cultivation world. What does your contract have to do with the old man? If you dare to disrespect the old man will take your dog life. Noda Xie Qing took a step forward. His demonic aura filled the sky as he stared at Chen Hao from afar. Boom boom boom. Clang clang clang, Xia Lingfeng and the rest of the immortal Tao cultivators were shocked at this moment. They rushed up to the sky. The situation had turned into a state of mutual hostility. There was no doubt that once Noda Xie Qing made his move, the immortal demon war would break out. Back off. At this moment, Chen Hao turned around and shouted at Xia Lingfeng and the rest. Then, he looked coldly at Noda Xie Qing and said, "Old dog, your reason is very stupid. Don't you want to kill me and trigger the immortal demon war?" Ha ha ha. Whoosh. Bang. The moment Chen Hao spoke, the rainbow battle boots suddenly spat out 2 terrifying shockwaves. His figure once again shot out like a cannonball, not giving anyone any time to react. He rushed towards Mo Wuxin, who was already completely under the control of the profound energy field. Stretching out his hand, he viciously grabbed Mo Wuxin's throat. "I'll fulfill your wish. You'll become a dead dog like him." Boom boom boom, Mo Wuxin's eyes bulged, and he struggled madly. The remaining energy exploded around Chen Hao. Even though it was still terrifying to most of the fighters at the peak of the later stage of Blessed Realm, Chen Hao, who shone with a seven-colored light, looked like a god. He was not affected at all. This little bit of energy could not even break through his spiritual treasure set. Bang! His left hand grabbed Mo Wuxin's throat as if he was holding a chicken. His right hand punched out, and Mo Wuxin's arm and shoulder turned into a pile of flesh and blood. Chapter 462. Bang! 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 After 3 consecutive sounds, Soul Fighter's arms and legs disappeared. He became a meatball with only his head and chest left. Under the terrifying pain, Soul Fighter wanted to scream, but his veins were bulging on his face and his eyeballs were about to pop out. Yet, he couldn't make a sound. Under the effect of Chen Hao's mysterious energy, this pain wasn't as simple as a broken arm or a broken leg. This was a pain that shook his soul. It was the most realistic portrayal of being unable to live and unable to die. This bloody and cruel scene was 100 or 1,000 times more horrible than Chen Hao smashing Soul Fighter into pieces with one punch. Everyone present could see that Soul Fighter's primordial spirit was forced to his head by Chen Hao. This was the cruelest torture. But it wasn't over yet. Chen Hao used his right hand to cut Soul Fighter's upper body like a sharp blade. Pieces of flesh flew out from Soul Fighter's body. What was cutting him into pieces? This was it. Condense. Rumble. When Soul Fighter's head was left hanging in the air by Chen Hao's bone-chilling voice rang out. Immediately, Soul Fighter's primordial spirit appeared in front of everyone. It seemed to be struggling and howling, but it couldn't make any sound. It turned into a wisp of green smoke and was held in Chen Hao's hand. Old dog, didn't you want to kill me? I'll give you a chance. Swish. Chen Hao waved his hand and sent out a ray of energy. The 1,000 transformation Xian force field disappeared instantly. After a fierce battle with an opponent at the human celestial stage, his aura didn't weaken at all. Instead, it became more powerful. Even though it was broad daylight, his pitch-black eyes were still dazzling like stars. They were fierce and domineering, and his peerlessly handsome and angular face was terrifyingly cold. Plus, he had killed Soul Fighter in a bloody and cruel way. At this moment, everyone was scared out of their wits. Hundreds of thousands of people were silent. Even evil spirit Noda's face became extremely embarrassed. No one had thought that Chen Hao was actually powerful to such an extent. Noda Xie Qing had wanted to take advantage of the battle between Chen Hao and Soul Fighter to make his move. That way, he would have a high chance of killing Chen Hao. As long as Chen Hao died, even if the great war between immortals and demons broke out, it wouldn't be a threat to most of the experts. So what if they lost some people? As long as his foundation remained intact, he would be able to recover his vitality in a few years. Furthermore, after obtaining the territory and resources of the immortal path, his speed of development would be even faster. With luck, his chances of overcoming the half-immortal heaven punishment would increase exponentially. Because he was the mastermind. But he didn't expect that just as he was about to make a move, Chen Hao would kill the struggling Soul Fighter without any hesitation. It would have been fine if he had just killed him, but he had displayed such insufferably powerful strength. One had to know that although Soul Fighter was in a frenzy and had used up a lot of his energy, how much energy could he have used to struggle? At the very least, Noda Xie Qing was sure that he couldn't have done it as easily as Chen Hao. Of course, in his opinion, Chen Hao must have made use of that powerful spiritual treasure set. But who dared to say that possessing a spiritual treasure wasn't a form of strength? Why, are you afraid? Don't say that I didn't give you a chance. Don't think that the immortal path is easy to bully. When Chen Hao said this, he suddenly disappeared. Even his aura disappeared completely, leaving no trace behind. However, when his voice resounded in everyone's ears again in an instant, he was already above the army of several 100,000 people from the demon world. So what if you have hundreds of thousands of people? In my eyes, you're all ants. Swoosh. Swoosh. At the same time, just as everyone's hair stood on end, 3 rainbow-colored hands suddenly tore through the void. Ah ah ah, 3 terrified cries erupted from the mouths of the Yuan Gate, Sky Sword Sect and Floating Mist Sect. These 3 fellows had long been frightened out of their wits. Like dead dogs, they were imprisoned in Qinhao's hands. Hundreds of thousands of demons, but no one dared to stop him. No one could stop him. Oda Xie-Qing's expression changed greatly. He was terrified and ashamed to the extreme. Such a monster, he actually wanted to kill him. Was that even possible? The moment Qinhao disappeared, with his cultivation, he couldn't even sense a trace of his aura. So what if his combat power was stronger than Qinhao's? Not to mention that Qinhao's targets were 3 immortal Dao experts who had colluded with the demon sect. Even if Qinhao launched a sneak attack on him, he wouldn't be able to avoid it. Coming without a shadow, leaving without a trace, appearing and disappearing unpredictably. His combat power was monstrous. What shocked everyone even more was that an extremely powerful spiritual perception appeared in everyone's hearts at the same time. Everyone felt that under this spiritual perception, they had become completely naked. There were no more secrets to speak of. Even if hundreds of millions of lives in the immortal Dao die, I can still make all of you suffer a fate worse than death. Want to violate the contract? I'd like to see who dares to do so. Ah! Let me go, let me go. I promise to be loyal to the immortal Dao from now on. I won't betray it again, I don't want to die. Qinhao, I'll be your slave. I'm willing to fully support the star-picking sect to become the #1 immortal Dao sect. Please let me go. Ah, I was wrong, I was wrong. Please let me go. Under the terrifying pressure of Qinhao's 3 enormous hands, the Origin Sect, Sky Sword Sect, and Floating Mist Sect cultivators begged for mercy in agony. Qi! 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 3 streams of energy shot out from Qinhao's hands and merged into the 3 enormous hands in an instant. Ah! Incomparably shrill screams erupted from their mouths. I beg you. Let me die. Ah! Give me a quick death. Even if my body and soul are destroyed. Ah! I beg you. Just hearing those extremely painful screams sent chills down everyone's spine and made them break out in cold sweat. What kind of pain did these great figures, who had once stood at the pinnacle of the immortal Tao in the eastern continent, have to go through for them to utter such words in front of everyone? It was obvious that the pain they were enduring was far beyond anyone's imagination. This was exactly what Qinhao had said, they would rather die than live. Don't worry, the heavens are benevolent. I won't kill you. At most, I'll destroy your stinky skins. With your cultivation, you should be able to last for 100 years. I'm a very compassionate person. If you can't hold on, I'll treat your soul injuries regularly. Break. Rumble. As Qinhao's chilling voice rang out, the 3 cultivators' bodies instantly exploded into a bloody mist. Their primordial spirits struggled with all their might to transform into 3 wisps of green smoke that were sucked into Qinhao's palms. They followed in Soul Fighter's footsteps. Nearly 40,000 people from the Immortal Dao sect stared at Qinhao, who single-handedly charged into the enemy's ranks and captured the 3 culprits who had colluded with the demon world. No one dared to stop him. They clenched their fists tightly, their blood boiling with excitement. As for the hundreds of thousands of soldiers from the Demon Dao and Yao Dao sect, they felt an eerie chill and incomparable fear. Who could stop such a person? We'll record the names of the others from the Origin Gate, Heavenly Sword Sect, and Floating Mist Sect. When the time comes, we'll hand them over together. As Qinhao spoke, his cold and arrogant gaze landed on the 40 limitless Demon Palace disciples, who had long since turned pale with fright. This was especially true for the disciples from Broken Heart Hall who had followed Soul Fighter to hunt down Qinhao and the others. They were so scared that they almost pissed their pants. As for the Creation Realm experts from the Origin Gate, Heavenly Sword Sect, and Floating Mist Sect, they were all trembling violently. Howls of despair suddenly erupted. Boom boom boom, there were actually quite a few people who self-destructed their primordial spirits at the same time, their souls scattering. Escape. Once the contract took effect, none of them would be able to escape. The demon world, the immortal world, and the Yao world, there would be no place for them to stand. When they thought of the fates of the three great sect masters, these brave warriors chose to self-destruct without any hesitation. Senior Qin. We were forced to do this. We had no choice, our lives are in the hands of the sect master. Otherwise, why would we do such a thing? We had no choice. We really had no choice. There were also some creation realm experts present who spoke loudly to the godlike Qin Hao in fear. Whether you were forced or not, Sect Master Xia and the others will come to the conclusion. Now, the wagered battle of the Eastern Continent's cultivation world is over. Disciples of the Limitless Demon Palace, it's your turn now. Qin Hao said coldly. As he spoke, his cold gaze landed on the 40 Limitless Demon Palace disciples. Qi, Qin Shui, Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu, the injured Tan Tai Lian, as well as Jiang Hai, Huang Wenxiu, and the other 40 Limitless Immortal Palace disciples, at this moment, without any hesitation, each and every one of them flew towards the center of the three realms Milky Way. We, the Demon Tao, admit defeat. We are willing to compensate. The 40 Limitless Demon Palace disciples were already scared out of their wits. How could they still dare to fight? When the contract was signed, it was said that all the disciples of the three great palaces would fight. Originally, they did not know that Qin Hao, this monster, would come. They also did not expect that Qin Shui and the other three would still be able to fight after the wagered battle. How could they fight now? Not to mention Qin Shui and the other three, even if Qin Hao participated, they would not have any chance of winning. They would just be courting death. The only fortunate thing was that they did not sign a life and death battle. If they lost, they would only have to agree to one condition, which was to hand over a few disciples of the Limitless Demon Palace's Broken Heart Hall and compensate. This had nothing to do with them. How could they fight? There is no need for compensation. I don't care about your little wealth. Boom boom boom. Chi. When Qin Hao looked at the Limitless Demon Palace disciples, dozens of people attacked at the same time before he could say anything. In an instant, they took down the few disciples beside him. Qin Hao, the turmoil in the Eastern Continent was completely caused by Soul Fighter of the Broken Heart Hall and these people. We admit defeat for this battle. Every injustice has its perpetrator, every debt has its debtor. You can settle the score with them. We guarantee that the demon world will immediately fulfill the contract of the Eastern Continent's cultivation world. Within 3 days, the handover will be completed. We will cooperate with the Immortal Tao to complete the reconstruction of the three realms boundary and restore the Eastern Continent to its normal state. The leader of the 40 people stared at Qin Hao as he spoke. Although his voice was crisp and clear, his trembling hands revealed the nervousness in his heart at this moment. Chapter 463. These are the people you want. Send them over. Seeing that Qin Hao still did not say anything, the disciple became even more nervous. His voice trembled as he spoke. His heart was filled with regret. He had been bewitched by Soul Fighter and wanted to make a great contribution to the Limitless Demon Palace in the Eastern Continent. Now, not only did he not make a great contribution, his life was in danger. Chi. When more than 10 disciples brought the Broken Heart Palace's disciples to Qin Hao did not draw his sword. Instead, he waved his hand and sent out a few sharp sword lights, which directly pierced their hearts. Following their screams, their primordial spirits were taken into Qin Hao's hands. From the beginning to the end, Qin Hao's expression did not change at all. It was as if he was doing something insignificant. He was cold, ruthless, and overbearing. Central Continent, as long as you come at me, I welcome you to challenge me. However, if you use despicable means like Soul Fighter, don't blame me for being merciless. You should be glad that I came back in time. Otherwise, the result would not be so simple. Chen Hao said coldly. Then, he looked at Xia Lingfeng and said, Clan Master Xia, I'll leave the rest to you. Yes. Under Chen Hao's aura, Xia Lingfeng actually cupped his fists and replied respectfully, as if he was a subordinate. However, at this moment, whether it was Xia Lingfeng or the 40,000 people in the immortal path, no one felt that Xia Lingfeng's action was inappropriate. Who could turn the tide with the strength of a single person? Who could kill a half-step human immortal as if he was killing a chicken when he was only at the initial stage of the manifestation realm? One man and one sword, in front of hundreds of thousands of manifestation realm experts, trampled 3 people who were once at the peak of the immortal path. Who could do it? Who could frighten the old farts who had not appeared for hundreds of years to the point that they did not even dare to fart? No one. However, Chen Hao did it. With absolute strength, absolute arrogance, and absolute coldness, he did it. One man deterred the 3 worlds of the eastern continent. And he was just a young man in his 20s. Chen Hao led the 4 women and 40 disciples of the limitless immortal palace and flew into the sky. Boss, you're amazing. Too powerful, haha. Brother Chen, I didn't expect you to be so strong. It's unbelievable. Even in the central continent, no one can compare. Thankfully, Brother Chen returned in time. Otherwise, the immortal Tao would have suffered, that's right. Although the junior sisters are very strong, they can't change the outcome, pooh. Ah. Just as everyone was tens of thousands of li away, and when they were certain that no one would be able to sense them, all of them started to greet Chen Hao excitedly. Chen Hao's expression seemed calm, and his aura didn't weaken in the slightest. However, to everyone's surprise, Chen Hao spurted out a mouthful of blood. His face instantly turned pale, and he staggered, almost falling from the sky. Chen Shui, who was beside him, grabbed him. What happened to you? Hao, the 3 girls also looked at Chen Hao in astonishment. At this moment, Helian Wuzi and Xia Yuyu were holding onto the injured Tan Tai Lian. Little Shui, support me. Before the 3 realms return to normal, don't let anyone know that I'm heavily injured. Almost in the blink of an eye, Chen Hao spurted out a mouthful of essence blood. His life aura had actually weakened to a frightening extent, and his face was frighteningly pale. Hao, Chen Hao, boss, don't scare us. The 4 girls, Jiang Hai, Huang Wenxiu, and the others' expressions changed greatly. No one had expected that Chen Hao, who seemed completely fine just a moment ago, would suddenly become so weak. Moreover, they could sense that Chen Hao's life aura was extremely weak. Support me, don't reveal any flaws, return to the star-picking sect first, after we return, announce that I've comprehended something, and need to go into seclusion immediately. Chen Hao's mouth was full of blood, and his voice was incomparably weak as he spoke intermittently. After he finished speaking, his pitch-black eyes were clearly open, but they had lost focus. Everyone's eyes widened in shock, and they were incomparably nervous. How could this be? How could this be? He was clearly fine. Could it be that boss, he used a secret technique? Huang Wenxiu looked at Chen Shui and the others and said. Hiss. Chen Shui, who was holding onto Chen Hao, did not speak. She directly poured her energy into Chen Hao's body, and controlled his body. What made Chen Shui's heart stab with pain was that Chen Hao's body did not have the slightest bit of energy. His internal organs, and even every cell, were dried up like a thirsty desert, and only a wisp of life force remained. He must have used a secret technique. No wonder he was so strong, no wonder he was so strong. Almost in an instant, Chen Shui's eyes were filled with tears. She suddenly looked at the 3 anxious girls and said, Little Wu, let's hold on to him. This news must not be leaked in the slightest bit. Wait for the 3 realms barrier to reconstruct, and the teleportation array to be restored, and we will immediately return to the central continent. Mother and the others will definitely have a way. Junior sister Chen, what's the situation? Is it very serious? The dozens of disciples of Wuji Immortal Palace present were basically the disciples of Yunwei Palace. The strength that Chen Hao had shown had completely conquered them. In addition, Senior Immortal Yunwei respected and valued Chen Hao. At this moment, when she saw Chen Hao suddenly become like this, she was sincerely concerned from the bottom of her heart. Senior Immortal Yunwei and my mother must have a way, definitely. Don't panic, stay calm. If the people of the demon realm and the demon realm know that he's in such a situation, he's really finished. Chen Shui suppressed the fear in her heart and said. Helian Wuzi let go of Tan Tai Lian and quickly came to Chen Hao's side. The two of them held on to Chen Hao and poured energy into Chen Hao to maintain his body. They also emitted a fierce aura. Although it was not as strong as Chen Hao's own, it did not seem too abnormal. Chen Hao was only at the early stage of the creation realm. With the help of the spiritual treasure set, he could at most compete with ordinary half-step human immortals. However, it was not so easy to win. It was just easier to save his life. Mo Wuxin had burned his lifespan and performed the evil path's great devouring skill. He had absorbed the energy of 7 experts at the peak of the late stage of the Fate realm and condensed it into his own body. His strength was infinitely close to the human celestial stage. Coupled with Mo Wuxin's extremely powerful talent, how could Chen Hao have won so easily? No one knew what Chen Hao, who seemed calm, arrogant, and insufferably arrogant, did at that time. He burned his lifespan. Soul Fighter burned 800 years of his lifespan, and Chen Hao was forced to do the same thing. It was the same great devouring skill, and the same evil shortcut that Soul Fighter used. The only difference was that he devoured the energy of the spiritual spring and countless spiritual herbs through the old god. Not only that, Chen Hao also used the old god's mental strength to deter the enemy for the first time. When he barged into the army of hundreds of thousands of people by himself, just by relying on his soul power, it was impossible for him to release such a huge pressure. Otherwise, if that old dog Oda Xie Qing sensed anything strange, he would probably be killed on the spot. Moreover, the reason why he was so cold-blooded and cruel was to deter Noda Xie Qing and everyone from both the Demon Dao and the Demon Dao. Once Noda Xie Qing saw any clues, the result could be imagined. How long could he last after burning 800 years of his lifespan, no matter how strong his talent and physical strength were? He could not last much longer than Soul Fighter. The pain that he had endured until now was unimaginable. He was almost at the end of his life. Even though he knew that his soul would be irreparably damaged, he still insisted on doing so. There was no other way. Only by doing so could Chen Shui, Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu, and Tan Tai Lian be safe. His younger brother, sister, brothers, and friends would be safe. Only then would the entire immortal Tao of the Eastern continent be safe. If he hadn't done that, he could have escaped. Moreover, he could have used his own strength to wreak havoc in the Eastern continent's demon realm and demon realm. He could have killed everyone involved in this incident. Could he save the lives of his family and friends? No. That was an outcome that Chen Hao did not want to see. Old God, you should stop Chen Hao. In Chen Hao's mind, the treasure-hunting sword spirit sensed Chen Hao's aura and said unhappily to the old god. Stop. Why don't you stop him? Who can stop this kid from doing what he wants? I don't believe you can't stop him. Don't think I don't know that your current ability is not as simple as what you told Chen Hao. So what? If it was the previous masters, I would have stopped him. I would not have allowed his soul to suffer irreparable damage, but this time, I will not stop him. Why? Because the previous masters seemed perfect, but none of them were able to reach the end. I told you before that human emotions are the most powerful, mysterious power. Although the damage to the soul will cause it to become incomplete, his emotions will remain perfect. I can't tell if it's a blessing or a curse. From the beginning until now, the path he walked was chosen by himself. I decided not to interfere before, and I will not interfere now, and I will not interfere in the future. Moreover, it's not like there's no way to repair it. Although it's impossible to completely recover, at least the damage can be reduced to negligible levels. Damn. You said so much, you should have said so earlier. What method? Hearing the old god's last sentence, the treasure-hunting sword spirit could not help but curse at the powerful old god. In fact, after interacting with the old god, the treasure-hunting sword spirit realized that the old god was not as terrifying as it had imagined. At least, the treasure-hunting sword spirit was sure that the old god treated it well, and it was no longer as fearful as before. Even an idiot can think of the simplest and most direct method. Do you still need me to tell you? Cough cough. There are many ways to repair the damage to the soul, all right. Anyway, it's none of our business. Even if it can't be repaired, with his power of comprehension and physical body, he'll be able to break through to the human celestial stage very soon. As his cultivation level increases, the damage to his soul will slowly recover. The so-called irreparable damage is only limited to a certain cultivation level. As long as he can continue to increase his cultivation level, there's nothing to worry about. Chapter 464. It was the same burning of lifespan and the same damage to the soul. But to Soul Fighter Mo, he was basically useless. Chen Hao, on the other hand, was different. His soul was originally a mutated fused soul. It was several times stronger than a cultivator of the same level. Even if it was damaged, it was still a dead camel. It was stronger than Soul Fighter Mo in his peak state. 4 hours later, Chen Hao and the others returned to the Jiaxing sect through the transportation array between the cities. The Jiaxing sect of today, under the auspices of Chen Hao, Helian Wuzi, Tantai Lian, and many other rising geniuses, had undergone earth-shattering changes compared to a few years ago. It was shrouded in auspicious light and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was abundant. Although it was still far from the central mainland, it was already a top-level holy land for cultivation in the eastern mainland. In addition, Chen Hao's grandfather, Len Kongya, had transferred a large amount of primordial crystal stones to the Jiaxing sect through the Chamber of Commerce. The Jiaxing sect had truly stepped into the ranks of powerful sections. The only thing they lacked was a little bit of foundation. Unfortunately, Chen Hao, who was deep in self-recovery, could not see it. However, at this moment, the entire Jiaxing sect was deserted. There was not even a single disciple guarding the door. In the entire Jiaxing sect, there were only 6 grand elders and more than 100 disciples who were close to Chen Hao, anxiously waiting for news. When Helian Wuzi used the sect's command medallion to activate the star-seizing sect's defensive formation, which was countless times stronger than before, the 6 grand elders immediately soared into the sky from the star-seizing peak, appearing before everyone as fast as lightning. Chen Hao, you're back. We've won, haven't we? The Grand Elder, who had once condensed his own grotto heaven for Chen Hao to enter to cultivate, asked nervously and excitedly when he saw Chen Hao, the 4 girls, and the 40 disciples of Wuji Immortal Palace. They were all clear about the situation of the bet. If they had not won, Chen Hao and the 4 girls would not have had a chance to return. However, what surprised them was that there did not seem to be any joy of victory on everyone's faces. Although they all looked calm, they could tell that everyone's expressions were forced. Seniors, we've won. During the battle, Chen Shui hesitated for a moment, yet she didn't speak the truth in the end and said, he has comprehended something and has already immersed himself in a special state of cultivation. We have to send him back to the palace first. Ah. Good, we won, it's good that we won, Grand Elder, I'll have to trouble you to arrange a place for my senior brothers and sisters to rest for the time being. Sect Master and the others should be back in less than 3 days. Helian Wuzi said, also, if Xiao Ma and Chen Hao's younger brother and sister ask, tell them not to disturb Chen Hao for the time being. He needs some time, no problem. They're all at star-picking peak. Just don't tell them for now. The 6 grand elders faintly felt a bit strange, but since Qin Shui and Helian Wuzi said so, it wasn't good for them to ask anymore. After all, they were very familiar with Qin Hao's aura, at least in the past. But now, although Qin Hao's spirit seemed to be full, there was a faint feeling of incompatibility. Especially at a close distance, the 6 of them could feel that it seemed to be related to Qin Shui and Helian Wuzi. Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu also wanted to follow, but they still restrained themselves. They couldn't help even if they went over. Instead, they were like light bulbs, adding to the awkwardness. How is it? In Qin Hao's palace, when Qin Shui slowly withdrew her palms from Qin Hao's body, the 3 girls looked nervously at Qin Shui, who was dripping with fragrant sweat, and asked. Qin Shui shook her head with a grave expression and said, "I can't sense any signs of recovery. He seems to have entered a deep sleep. In this situation, his soul must have suffered a serious injury, and he's once again immersed in this subconscious self-recovery state. We don't have to worry too much. His life force is no longer weakening, and seems to have stabilized. Then what should we do? Don't tell me we're just going to watch." Xia Yuyu frowned and said. "Naturally we can't watch. Why don't you try? Yuyu, didn't you have that kind of dual cultivation energy with him in the ruins? And little Lien, your phoenix inheritance with him. If you can fuse with his soul, it should be able to help him recover the injury on his soul. That kind of true, dual cultivation, is useful. When yin and yang converge, it's easiest to achieve soul fusion." Qin Shui braced herself and said a little embarrassedly. She was very clear on this point. The reason why her soul was so strong was because of the yin and yang fusion. Only, the difference was that her mother had forcefully used more than 100 years to condense the purest yang essence in the world for her, and not through dual cultivation. Seeing Xia Yuyu and Tan Tai Lien's slightly red faces and not speaking, Qin Shui could only say again, "My intention is not for you to do that with him. After all, you and him should have had soul fusion before. Your soul and his soul, in a certain sense, already have a certain degree of compatibility. Right now, little Wu is displaying the cultivation technique that you guys had comprehended together. Maybe it can cause a trace of fluctuation. As long as he realizes it, it should be a little useful, right? Little Lien's Phoenix Nirvana should have a better effect. After all, you guys. Let me do it, but you guys can't just watch." The more Qin Shui said, the more embarrassed she felt. Just as she was too embarrassed to continue, Tan Tai Lien said with a red face. Among the 4 of them, 3 were still virgins. Only Tan Tai Lien and Qin Hao had done it once. But after a few years, and under the circumstances that they had no choice, Tan Tai Lien's situation was not much better than the 3 of them. But under such circumstances, what was the point of continuing to be shy? Let me try first. Just at this moment, Helian Wuzi suddenly said. You? Qin Shui and the other 2 looked at Helian Wuzi in astonishment. I didn't mean that. My soul has awakened the power of reincarnation. Master had once told me that the power of reincarnation is the most mysterious energy in the world. The more I awaken, the stronger my soul will be. The greatest use of the power of reincarnation is to nourish and strengthen the soul. I want to try and see if it's useful to him. Helian Wuzi's words immediately received unanimous agreement from the 3 of them. After all, although Tan Tai Lien had mustered up her courage, the awkwardness in her heart was undoubtedly quite serious. Especially when the 3 of them were aware of it. Although Qin Shui and Xia Yuyu were very supportive of Tan Tai Lien taking the initiative to appear, they more or less felt a little awkward in their hearts. This feeling was very subtle. It was like a snack shared by the 4 of them. No one was embarrassed to take the first bite, but if someone took the first bite, the others would also be unhappy. Hiss hiss hiss. Helian Wuzi directly replaced Qin Shui's position and sat cross-legged behind Qin Hao. Her palms gently pressed on Qin Hao's vital gate. She, who had already stepped into the creation realm, had a deeper understanding of the power of reincarnation. It was no longer like before when she could only activate the power of reincarnation when she used the ultimate technique. Now, she could control her own vital essence and naturally contain the power of reincarnation. As she activated her vital essence, a mysterious aura instantly filled the entire room. Hellion Woozy activated her own energy that contained the power of reincarnation and merged it into Chinhao's body bit by bit. Her mind also completely followed her own energy and merged with Chinhao's physical body. Bit by bit, it approached Chinhao's mind. It's useless, although the power of reincarnation is mysterious and powerful, it's only useful to her own soul. This is the power that she condensed after 100 reincarnations. It has no effect on Chinhao. Do you want to remind them? In Chinhao's mind, the treasure-hunting sword spirit heard the old god's words and said, "Can you grow some brains? Chinhao has never told them of our existence. You're going to remind them now. If you remind them, who would dare to take the next step? Although we're not humans, they won't care whether we're humans or not. Alright, from now on, let's enter a deep cultivation state. Otherwise, if Chinhao knows that we're watching, he'll inevitably roar." Old God said. That's true. Chinhao treats us as brothers, let alone them. Damn it, let's escape. What's there to be embarrassed about? In my opinion, it's nothing. It's also meaningless. You don't understand. Of course, I don't understand either. This kid's current state is very strange. Why do I feel that he's not completely in a subconscious state of self-isolation to heal himself? What do you mean? I don't know the details either. If he's in a deep self-isolation to heal himself, there should be at least some fluctuations in his soul abode. But now, it's completely silent. Even I can't sense any changes. Maybe it's not time yet. He might be healing from the core of his soul abode. Alright, let's escape. Anyway, there's no big problem. Hiss hiss hiss. The mysterious power of reincarnation lasted for a full hour. Hellion Woozy's mind had already integrated into Chinhao's mind. But no matter how she called out, Chinhao didn't have the slightest bit of response. And her power of reincarnation couldn't even lock onto the position of his soul abode, let alone nourish Chinhao's soul. When it reached 2 hours, Hellion Woozy, whose mind was seriously exhausted, finally chose to give up powerlessly. Needless to say, the 3 girls could tell from Hellion Woozy's expression that there was no progress. "Xiao Yan, you do it," Hellion Woozy said helplessly. "Oh. Then you guys go out. Don't peek." "No, I'll bring him to the cultivation room," Tan Tai Lien said. In the room, even if Tan Tai Lien set up a restriction that could prevent Xia Yuyu and Hellion Woozy from peeking, it definitely couldn't stop Qin Shui, whose soul perception was very strong. If such an embarrassing thing was seen, wouldn't it be terrible? Let's do it here. The cultivation room is very hard. He's seriously injured. We promise not to peek, Qin Shui said. Let's go, Xiao Wu, Yuyu, let's go out. As Qin Shui spoke, she didn't allow Tan Tai Lien to reject and pulled the 2 girls out. Chapter 465. After Tan Tai Lien closed the door, she condensed another barrier. Only then did she let out a long sigh of relief with a flushed face. They won't peek, right? After Qin Shui, Hellion Woozy and Xia Yuyu arrived at the hall, their faces were all serious. They directly sat down cross-legged with their backs facing the steering wheel in the room. No one spoke, but they were all a little nervous. Especially when they thought of what Tan Tai Lien might do next, a faint blush appeared on their faces. 5 minutes passed, the 3 still didn't say a word, but they couldn't help but carefully sense each other's aura. 10 minutes later, Xia Yuyu looked at Qin Shui, then looked at Tan Tai Lien, and finally couldn't help but speak first. Do you think Little Lien and Haohao's Phoenix inheritance will work? It's already been 10 minutes, I don't know if it has any effect. I'm so impatient. Aren't you worried at all? Who says we're not worried, but we can't peek, right? Helian Wuzi said, and looked at Qin Shui at the same time. After a slight pause, she said, Sister Shui, did you already peek? No. Don't talk nonsense. Why would I peek? Qin Shui blushed, frowned and glared at Helian Wuzi, pretending to be angry. Then why don't you look worried at all? Helian Wuzi frowned. That's right, Sister Shui. If you want to look, then look. We won't tell little Lien. What's the situation now? Xia Yuyu also said. The two of them were sure that Qin Shui had already peeked. It couldn't be helped. During this period of contact, the two of them already knew Qin Shui's abnormal soul perception. Even compared to Qin Hao, it wasn't the slightest bit weaker. If Qin Shui really wanted to peek, whether it was little Lien or them, they definitely wouldn't be able to detect it. You too. I really didn't look. How am I not worried? But what's the use of being worried? Do you want to peek? I'm just a little impatient, me too. But we don't have such strong perception. If we peek, I'm afraid it will affect little Lien. That's not good. When Xia Yuyu and Helian Wuzi heard Qin Shui's words, they naturally wouldn't say that they wanted to peek. They only said that they were anxious. So you want to peek? I have a way to let you guys peek without little Lien noticing. Qin Shui said. What method? The two of them hurriedly asked. My psychic mirror. I think I left it in my room. Qin Shuameng whispered in embarrassment. Ah. Sister Shui, you're so sinister, you don't want to watch anymore, do you? Hearing Xia Yuyu actually call her sinister, Qin Shui angrily glared at Xia Yuyu's pure and clear eyes. She was indeed a little embarrassed. However, she was doing this for the sake of Qin Hao. After all, her mother had placed a restriction on her body. For the time being, no matter what, she could not help Qin Hao. As for Helian Wuzi and Xia Yuyu, they shouldn't have this problem. However, Qin Shui, Helian Wuzi, and Xia Yuyu were all virgins and didn't have any experience in this area. What if the two of them didn't know what to do? She didn't have any experience to pass on. Even if she did, how could she have the nerve to pass it on? As for Tan Tai Lien, she was considered an expert among the four of them. She had at least experienced it once, right? Such an opportunity to observe was a great opportunity to learn. I want to watch, I want to watch. Sister Shui, when we activate it, will we be discovered by Xiaolian? She won't. I've placed a concealment restriction on the psychic mirror. Moreover, Xiaolian has already immersed herself in communicating with Qin Hao. Even if you try to sense it, she won't discover it. At most, she'll discover it afterwards. I'll contact you. Quickly connect. Xia Yuyu impatiently took out her psychic mirror. The three great beauties actually gathered together as if they were thieves. Even when Qin Shui used her perception to secretly look, her heartbeat quickened. After all, her perception could only sense the circulation of Tan Tai Lien's aura and roughly simulate the scene. However, it wasn't visible to the naked eye. However, the psychic mirror was different. As for Helian Wuzi and Xia Yuyu, they were even more nervous. Their eyes stared fixedly at the psychic mirror and even held their breaths. After Helian Wuzi sent out the signal, Qin Shui's powerful divine sense directly penetrated into the room and connected to Helian Wuzi's signal request. Hiss! The psychic mirror in Helian Wuzi's hand instantly emitted rays of faint blue light. A clear image appeared in the eyes of the three people. The three great beauties all stared with their eyes wide open. They held their breaths and stared with their eyes straight. The three little faces instantly flushed red. They saw that Tan Tai Lien and Qin Hao were already completely naked. Tan Tai Lien's graceful and exquisite body was fully revealed. Her charm was fully displayed. Her entire body flickered with resplendent faint blue flames which enveloped the completely naked Qin Hao. The two of them sat cross-legged facing each other and slowly circled in the air. Seeing the completely naked Tan Tai Lien, the three girls were already extremely shy. Their heartbeats strangely accelerated to a terrifying degree. Not to mention seeing the completely naked Chen Hao. Tan Tai Lian's graceful and exquisite body caused them to exclaim in admiration in their hearts. At the same time, they were also secretly comparing. It had to be said that at any time, a woman's mentality of comparison existed. Especially in the aspect of beauty, it was even more so. And Chen Hao's streamlined muscles, full of masculinity and beauty, caused the three girls to stop breathing. This wasn't because the three girls were lustful, nor was it because they saw Chen Hao's body and were overflowing with lust. It was merely the attraction of yin and yang between them and the man they loved. Even though the current Chen Hao's aura was still terrifyingly weak, it didn't affect the visual impact he brought to the three girls. So ugly. When Xia Yuyu's gaze couldn't help but carefully size up Chen Hao's body from head to toe, and when it moved to a certain place, this innocent girl couldn't help but open her mouth and make a sound. What's ugly? Chen Shui and Helian Wuzi both looked at Xia Yuyu curiously. Here. Xia Yuyu actually pointed at a certain place on the psychic mirror's image and said bluntly. It's indeed ugly. Helian Wuzi slightly frowned, her face flushed red, but she resisted laughing and said very seriously. PFFF. Chen Shui couldn't help but laugh out loud. She looked at Xia Yuyu with a speechless face and said, Yuyu, you shouldn't not know what that is, right? What? Xia Yuyu asked in astonishment. PFFF. Helian Wuzi finally couldn't help but laugh out loud. Her originally cold little face looked at Xia Yuyu with eyes full of speechlessness. Even though Chen Shui and Helian Wuzi were unmarried girls, how could they not have seen the difference between a boy and a girl in their living environment since they were young? It's just that after they grew up, they didn't see it. But Xia Yuyu was a girl favored by the heavens, and was obviously pure to the point of idiocy. This is the difference between a man and a woman. When the real yin and yang dual cultivation, it's necessary. I also don't understand too much. Let's see, Xiaoyan should understand more than us. If Chen Hao was awake at this moment, and knew that a man and a woman were using his most precious thing to discuss beauty and ugliness, he would be so depressed that he would vomit 3 liters of blood. At this moment, I don't even feel a fart. I'm completely immersed in a mysterious state. How could it not be ugly? That's the Rui Jingu Bang, right now it's just a little listless. Once it displays its peerless might and peerless style, who would dare to say it's ugly? Whoever says it will be served with the Jingu Bang. In the room. Tan Tai Lian wholeheartedly immersed herself in the arduous task of awakening Chen Hao. She only thought that Chen Shui might be spying on her, but she could only ignore it. After all, no matter how strong her perception was, she still couldn't really see what she was doing. Chen Shui could only rely on her imagination. If she knew that her every move was being monitored by 6 big eyes, she probably wouldn't be able to enter the state at all. Unfortunately, after using an entire half an hour, Tan Tai Lian had activated the Phoenix Inheritance and the heavenly flames of Nirvana with limitless possibilities. Moreover, she had also raised her emotions to the point where she was almost burning with desire. However, Chen Hao still didn't give her any response. This kind of thing could only be completed when both parties were on the same page. Because this wasn't a simple XXOO, but a fusion of yin and yang. Without absolute passion and excitement, it was impossible to awaken Chen Hao's soul, not to mention a true fusion of spirit and body. Otherwise, Tan Tai Lian would only need to use a little bit of her energy to make certain things display their power. After an hour, Tan Tai Lian finally helplessly stopped activating her mind and energy. Her essence, energy, and spirit seemed to have been burned and withered. She was extremely weak. After putting on her clothes, she helped Chen Hao, who was motionless like a corpse, put on his clothes. Creak, Tan Tai Lian gently pushed open the door. Her face was slightly red as she peeked out. She saw 3 women sitting cross-legged with their backs facing the door. They seemed to be immersed in cultivation. I'm done. Tan Tai Lien let out a slight sigh of relief and said softly. After a while, Qin Shui and the other two acted as if they were done cultivating. They floated to Tan Tai Lien's side and said, "Done? How is it?" Tan Tai Lien shook her head and said, "It's useless." He didn't have any reaction at all. "You, try it." "Ah. I'd better not try. If you can't do it, then I can't either." Hearing Tan Tai Lien's words, Xia Yuyu's face immediately turned red and she said nervously. "How would you know if you don't try?" Tan Tai Lien said. "Even if you try it, it definitely won't work. The ruins that Hao Hao and I entered were only of a very low level. The cultivation method that we studied together was only of the innate realm. Now that we're all in the blessed realm, what effect can it have? It really won't work." Xia Yuyu said. "Yuyu, this has nothing to do with the realm of the cultivation method. What's important is the degree of compatibility between your souls. That's right, why don't you go to the cultivation room? Chen Hao once cultivated in the cultivation room, and there are remnants of his aura. Perhaps it will be useful." Chen Shui stared at Xia Yuyu and said. At the same time, she sent a message to her, "Yuyu, this time, we promise not to peek. That should be fine, right?" Chapter 466. Xia Yuyu agreed in the end, but she didn't go to the cultivation room. Instead, she asked Qin Shui to take away the psychic mirror. After checking it several times and confirming that there were no secrets, she started to activate the 9 revolutions Earth-Yin technique. After all, her dual cultivation with Chen Hao wasn't a true fusion of spirit and body. Even if it was sensed, it was nothing compared to Tan Tai Lien's. The 9 revolutions Earth-Yin technique was too low-level for the current Xia Yuyu. Now that she was activating it, both its power and her comprehension were countless times stronger. Waves after waves of mental shock, as well as the telepathy that she and Qin Hao had comprehended together, surged into Qin Hao's mind like a tide. But Qin Hao's mind was like refined steel. No matter how tender Xia Yuyu was, he didn't react at all. When her essence, energy, and spirit were exhausted, Xia Yuyu had to give up. "What should we do? We've tried, but there's nothing we can do. We can only wait until the 3 realms are rebuilt and the passageway is restored. My mother and your master should have a way. Let's take turns for the next 2 days. Even if we can't wake him up, we have to instill energy into him. Right now, he doesn't seem to have any ability to recover." Qin Shui was at her wit's end. That's the only way. The 4 of them knew that Qin Hao's life wasn't in danger. The only thing they were worried about was the impact of Qin Hao's soul injury on his cultivation. In the cultivation world, there were many geniuses who declined due to soul injuries. Just like how Qin Hao said soul fighter during the war, the 4 girls had no idea. Central Continent, Limitless Demon Palace, Heartbroken Palace. Dead, dead, all dead, all dead, all dead. Ah! Boom! Fan Suixin punched a mountain peak angrily and turned it into dust. Fan Suixin's towering anger made her almost crazy. In the past few months, Soul Fighter's astonishing improvement was already on the verge of entering the ranks of the top geniuses. Fan Suixin believed that Soul Fighter would definitely be able to amaze the world in the upcoming Wuji Elite Academy qualifiers and win glory and fortune for Heartbroken Hall. They were all dead. Not only was Soul Fighter dead, but all the genius disciples of Heartbroken Palace who followed Soul Fighter were dead as well. Qin Hao. Ah! Boom! 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 Under Fan Suixin's angry roar, the giant mountain peaks were directly destroyed. The land within tens of thousands of miles of Broken Heart Hall was shaking. Countless experts of Broken Heart Hall stared at the Mad Hall Master in silence, their hearts trembling with fear. Vice Palace Master, what happened to make the Palace Master so angry? Several old men quietly came to the Deputy Palace Master's side and asked through telepathy with a shocked expression. Soul Fighter is dead, what? The old men's eyes widened in shock. Not only is Soul Fighter dead, all of the genius disciples who followed him are dead as well. How is this possible? Did the celestial venerable T? These old men were the higher-ups of the Broken Heart Hall, so they knew everything about Soul Fighter, the genius disciple. When they heard the Vice Palace Master's words, they immediately thought of the celestial venerable. The Vice Palace Master shook his head and sighed. It's Chen Hao. Chen Hao. Didn't he die in the relic? If he really died in the relic, this wouldn't happen. 2 days ago, his name appeared on the list of Elite Academy X's qualifiers, didn't the registration end 2 months ago? He's one of the elite guardians of the Alliance. Before the start of the tournament, as long as you're in the manifestation realm, you can register at any time. Vice Palace Master, all of you come here. Yes. The experts who were whispering to each other suddenly heard Fan Suixin's voice, which resounded throughout Heartbroken Palace. They hurriedly flew over. Gather all the details of Chen Hao killing Soul Fighter and the other disciples of Heartbroken Palace, as well as the super genius disciples from other palaces that Soul Fighter invited. Report it to the headquarters and report it to the palaces that those super genius disciples belong to. Remember, all information on Chen Hao must be detailed. I don't believe that limitless demon palace will allow him to grow. Yes. Vice Palace Master, once the Eastern Continent's cultivation world recovers, rush over immediately to understand the situation. Yes, Palace Master. 3 days later. We won. We won. Ha ha ha. Boom boom boom. Countless experts of the immortal Tao in the creation realm stared at the violent ripples in the air and let out cheers that reverberated throughout the world. The 3 realms and the Milky Way, under the cooperation of all the experts and the contracts signed by the 3 Daos, the 3 realms were redivided and a new boundary was formed. It was only at this moment that the real victory was here. All the major chambers of commerce had regained their communications with the outside world. The 3 teleportation portals to the outside world were restored. Immediately, countless cultivators in the Eastern Continent who were anxiously waiting received the news at the same time. Everyone thought that they had heard wrong. How was it possible that the Immortal Path had won and obtained a territory of 20 million kilometers? Chen Hao. Chen Hao. It's Chen Hao. In all the information that was sent back, there were a few names with Chen Hao as the leader. Chen Hao, Chen Shui, Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu and Tan Tai Lian. Chen Hao's astonishing battle prowess had shaken the entire Eastern Continent's cultivation world. Chen Hao, who had been the #1 cultivator among the younger generation of the Eastern Continent's Immortal Path, had once again become the focus of the entire Immortal Path in just a few short years. The intersect competition could not be compared to this time. A manifestation realm cultivator had suppressed a half-step human immortal, turned the tide, and saved the Eastern Continent's Immortal Path. What did that mean? When the news reached the Eastern Continent's Immortal Path, the 10 sects issued a joint order to hold a celebration at the Stargazing sect in 3 days. All cultivators above the primordial spirit realm were eligible to participate. All qualified cultivators hurried to the Stargazing sect as soon as possible, wanting to pay their respects to Chen Hao, the man who changed the fate of the Eastern Continent's Immortal Path. The disciples who didn't have the right to participate in the celebration were hopping mad. They asked their senior brothers and sisters to record the event with crystals. The Stargazing sect disciples who'd been forcibly disbanded were so moved that tears welled up in their eyes. As for the Stargazing sect disciples who'd announced in advance that they'd severed ties with the Stargazing sect, they quietly went into hiding. They didn't dare return, nor did they have the face to do so. However, when Xia Lingfeng and the 10 sects issued the news, they had no idea that something had happened to Chen Hao. Stargazing sect, Chen Hao's peak. Several important figures of the Eastern Continent, including Yuan Tairan, Xia Lingfeng, and the other sect leaders of the 10 sects, had gathered at the entrance to Chen Hao's palace. Secret arts, 800 years of lifespan, soul damage. Xia Lingfeng and the others stared at Chen Shui and the other girls, their expressions turning from joy to solemnity. We should have thought of this, no matter how strong the numinous treasure set is, how strong can it be? He's only at the early stage manifestation realm. No matter how strong his talent and battle prowess are, there's a limit to it. How can he defeat a half-step human immortal? Xia Lingfeng's brows were deeply furrowed as he stared blankly at the palace. His gaze seemed to penetrate the palace gates and see Qinhao, who'd fallen into a deep sleep. Everyone, this news must rot in your stomachs. No one can know about it. Qinhao burned his lifespan for the sake of the immortal Dao, and his soul was severely damaged. He's sacrificed too much. Because of this, he may very well lose the treatment that belongs to him as a top genius. Sigh, do you understand what I mean? Understood, Xia Lingfeng. But, how long can this be hidden? The world of cultivation is cruel. Everything depends on one's strength. His soul was severely damaged, especially after burning 800 years of his lifespan. In everyone's eyes, no matter how talented Qinhao was, he'd become a good-for-nothing. In the cruel world of cultivation, which force would be willing to waste countless resources and energy to cultivate a disciple who was destined to have no future? Of course, they knew why Xia Lingfeng wanted them to keep it a secret. He didn't want the Wuji Immortal Palace and the others to know about Qinhao's soul damage. Only in this way could Qinhao continue to receive resources. But even if they could hide it for a while, they couldn't hide it forever. After a while, when Qinhao's cultivation progress was mediocre, the truth would be revealed. At that time, Qinhao would fall from heaven to hell and become mediocre. We'll hide it for as long as we can. This is the only thing we can do for him. Now, as the #1 sect leader of the 10 immortal Dao sects, I declare that no matter what happens to Qinhao in the future, he, his family and friends, as well as the star-picking sect, will be protected by the immortal Dao sects. Without him, the immortal Dao sects wouldn't exist today. As long as he's willing, he can use any of our resources, even if it's a waste. Do you have any objections? No. I don't have any objections. But all the resources of the immortal Dao sects in the eastern continent are already of very little use to him. He's already in the manifestation realm. It's good that you don't have any objections. Whether it's useful or not, we can only leave it to the heavens. Xia Lingfeng said, sweeping his gaze across the crowd. Then, he looked at Xia Yuyu and said, Yuyu, grandfather announces today that you're officially Qinhao's Dao companion. When he wakes up, grandfather will hold a wedding ceremony for you. Grandfather. Xia Yuyu's face turned red. It seemed that she couldn't accept Xia Lingfeng's change. Are you not willing? No. Xia Yuyu said, grandfather, we've already discussed it. We'll immediately bring Hao back to the central continent and ask master for help. No. Absolutely not. Xia Lingfeng hastily said. Sect Master Xia, why not? Don't tell me you have a way. Qin Shui couldn't help but ask. Looking at Qin Shui's sharp gaze, Xia Lingfeng helplessly shook his head. We don't have a way. You can go back to the central continent, but you can't tell anyone that Qinhao burned 800 years of his lifespan and his soul was heavily injured. Although you've been in the eastern continent for a few years, you're still young and don't understand the cruelty of the cultivation world. Forgive me for being blunt, but if you really tell the immortal reverends that Qinhao's soul was heavily injured, I'm afraid that Qinhao will lose the qualification to be nurtured by the limitless immortal palace. I know that the 2 immortal reverends are very good to you, but that's all because of your talent. What if you lose your talent? The chances of someone with a heavily injured soul being able to step into the worldly immortal realm is close to 0. No matter how good the 2 immortal reverends are to Qinhao, they won't waste any more time on him. Impossible. My master. My mother is definitely not that kind of person. Qin Shui's face slightly changed. Yes, master treats Qinhao better than us. She definitely won't ignore Qinhao. Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu, and Tantai Lian also didn't agree with Xia Lingfeng's words. Chapter 467. That's because of the potential that Qinhao has shown. You're too naive. Myriad Pill Pavilion's Pavilion Master said, Sect Master Xia and the rest of us have been in the central continent before and have seen the fate of many fallen geniuses. If you really want to help Qinhao, you can't expose the news that Qinhao's soul is seriously injured. If you want to help him, you have to rely on yourselves. Hide it for as long as you can, and there may be a glimmer of hope. That's right. Also, you have to talk to the disciples of Wuji Immortal Palace who know about this. Qinhao has helped them a lot this time, and each of them has been given a spiritual treasure. I believe it shouldn't be a problem for them to hide it for a while, Xia Lingfeng said. Under the persistent persuasion of the crowd, the four girls began to feel uneasy. Moreover, through the discussion with the crowd, the four girls understood that even immortal venerables didn't have a good way to heal the soul. The only way to heal the soul was to find rare and precious spiritual herbs, spiritual pills, and powerful dual cultivation method. Subsequently, the four women found Jiang Hai, Huang Wenxiu, and the other disciples of Wuji Immortal Palace and explained the situation tactfully. Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu naturally wouldn't have any problems. As for the others, they were also hot-blooded young people who hadn't been assimilated by the cruelty of the cultivation world. They also had a pure heart and naturally agreed to keep Qinhao's secret. Under the leadership of Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu, they swore a poison oath. Although some of them had some thoughts, they could only bury it in their hearts. In their opinion, even if they didn't say anything, Qinhao's situation would be exposed sooner or later. They just needed to maintain the treatment for a while. Hiss. On the eastern continent's Immortal Path's teleportation array to Emerald Smoke City, a bright light flashed. The unconscious Qinhao, the four women, and the people of Wuji Immortal Palace disappeared from the teleportation array. The eastern continent's Immortal Path celebration, as well as Chen Nan, Qin Yan, and other relatives and friends who were eager to see Qinhao, could only be comforted by Xia Lingfeng and Yuan Tairan. Wuji Immortal Palace, Han Mei Hall. What's going on? When Qin Shui, Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu, and Tan Tai Lian stepped into the hall with Qinhao, Han Mei Immortal and Yun Wei Immortal locked onto Qinhao, who was standing in the middle. Others couldn't see what was wrong with Qinhao at the moment, but the two could see that Qinhao was pretending to be awake under the support of the four women's energy. The four girls bowed and greeted, "Greetings, Master Immortal. No need to be so courteous. Speak, what's the matter with this kid?" It's like this, Qin Shui slowly explained the situation that happened in the eastern continent during this period of time. Good. Good. I really didn't expect this little guy to be so strong. It seems like he had a huge harvest in the ruins. He can take out so many spirit treasures. Although the mysteries of these spirit treasures are very simple, the quality is beyond imagination. It's just right for you to use. Venerable Han Mei said. Hee. It seems like our two halls are going to amaze everyone in the Wuji Elite Academy's qualifier. Come, let me see what kind of state this guy is in. Yun Wei Immortal's face had a trace of gratification and expectation. Master. When Qinhao entered this state, he specifically told us that no one was allowed to check on his condition. He comprehended a mysterious lost art that he obtained in the historical remains. Once an external force interrupts him, he will suffer an extremely serious backlash. If we weren't in a hurry to come back and report to Master, we wouldn't have dared to bring him back. Helian Wuzi said. Oh. This guy. Alright, I won't bother about him. Did he say when he will wake up? Don't miss the Elite Academy's qualifier. Yun Wei Immortal said. He said he would finish in about 20 days. It shouldn't be delayed, right? Helian Wuzi replied. Master, should I bring Qinhao to my palace first, or? Qin Shui looked at Han Mei Immortal and asked. In formal occasions, she always called her Master. His palace has already been prepared. Bring him there. There is still less than a month left. The four of you have to hurry up and train. You all have great hopes in the Elite Academy's qualifier. No matter what, you all have to seize this opportunity. Master, What's so good about the elite academy? Although Chen Hao can finish in 20 days, what if he doesn't wake up by then? Chen Shui couldn't help but ask. The benefits of the elite academy are not something you can imagine. You will understand when you enter. Now, I can simply explain it to you. Stepping into the elite academy means that you have stepped into the real life of a cultivator. A vast and magnificent path will be opened for you. This is definitely not something that elixirs, magical treasures, cultivation grounds and other conditions can compare to. If you can't pass the qualifier, you will only have that qualification after reaching the immortal realm. You will understand a little when you enter the competition. Go. Oh, the four girls became more curious, but the two immortal primes obviously didn't want to say more. This kid is hiding a great secret. No matter how powerful the relics are, it is impossible to have so many spiritual treasure sets. Also, did you notice that the spiritual treasure sets of Xiao Wu and the rest, as well as the members of Ao Tian, are very compatible with their attributes? The materials used are extremely precious in the whole boundless land. How could he have gotten them in the relics? No relics can have so many spiritual treasures of the same level. Even if they appeared, they should be suitable for him. How could they be suitable for others? Who doesn't have a secret among the top geniuses? You are thinking too much. Han Mei Immortal glanced at Immortal Yunwei and said, he is only at the initial stage of the Destiny realm and has the combat power of a half-step human immortal. Even if he has a spiritual treasure set, it is still impossible. But he did it. This time, Limitless Demon Palace lost a lot of genius disciples. With Fan Suixin's character, he will definitely not let it go. Yes. It's up to him whether he'll become a stepping stone or be trampled on. However, I believe that other than those monstrous geniuses from the Limitless Devil Palace, there shouldn't be anyone who can do anything to him. Did you sense anything from his aura earlier? Venerable Yunwei asked. His essence, qi, spirit, and soul are all hidden to an unbelievable extent. Even I can't do that. I didn't dare to invade his body to check. After the four girls left with Chen Hao, the two immortal primes talked about Chen Hao. Although the four girls deliberately exaggerated Chen Hao's powerful spiritual treasure set and mysterious secret technique, the two immortal primes still felt that Chen Hao's achievements in the eastern continent were unbelievable. After all, the four of them couldn't hide the secret technique that Soul Fighter Mo had used and the existence of the half-step human immortal Noda Shiqing in the eastern continent. How could the two immortal primes not know the difference between the half-step human immortal and the Destiny realm? But Chen Hao did it. However, Chen Hao, who had always created miracles, didn't let the two immortal primes realize that Chen Hao had also burned his true yuan. After Lengning Huan, Lengning Lu, Huyan Albua, and the others knew that Chen Hao had returned, they all rushed to the palace that immortal primes Han Mei had specially arranged for Chen Hao. However, the four of them didn't tell Huyan Albua and the others about Chen Hao's situation. They only told the two beautiful sisters after Huyan Albua and the others left. The demon Dao is good at dual cultivation. Huan, Lele, does your family have a dual cultivation technique that can deal with Chen Hao's condition? After explaining the situation to the two beautiful sisters, Chen Shui and the others looked at the two of them with anticipation. Sister Shui, our family doesn't pay much attention to dual cultivation. Moreover, the two of us haven't learned anything about it. Oh. Then there's no other way. We can only rely on ourselves to find it. You guys take turns to replenish his energy. I'll go take a look at the secret art library. In the next few days, Chen Shui stayed in Cold Plum Hall's secret art library. As Immortal Prime's Han Mei's direct disciple and her biological daughter, Chen Shui had extremely high authority in Cold Plum Hall. Of course, this was also brought about by her talent. She had the authority to read all the information about the secret art library that was below the creation realm. However, after secretly flipping through all the dual cultivation techniques, Chen Shui couldn't find any that was suitable for Chen Hao's current condition. Instead, it gave her a deeper understanding of dual cultivation techniques. Dual cultivation with a Dao partner was indeed a great cultivation technique that was extremely effective for cultivators. However, even if many genius disciples had a Dao partner early on, they didn't really start dual cultivation. Originally, Qin Shui didn't understand. Dual cultivation could allow cultivators to advance faster and benefit a lot. Why didn't many people dual cultivate? Why did her mother stop her from being with Qin Hao? However, she understood now. If one could rely on one's talent to advance bravely, it was best to cultivate by oneself. Only when one encountered a bottleneck that one couldn't overcome, that was, when one's talent was pushed to the limit and there was no hope of advancing, would it be the best time to start dual cultivation. Otherwise, if one started too early, dual cultivation would only bring about obvious short-term effects, but it would be disadvantageous in the long run. Simply put, dual cultivation was like a super elixir that didn't differentiate between realms. It was the key to breaking through one's limits. The earlier one used it, the more wasted it would be. The later one used it, the higher the long-term benefits. These dual cultivation techniques have to be in a state of sobriety and achieve spiritual integration first. Only then can the yin and yang complement each other further. I've already checked all the dual cultivation manuals. There are more than 10,000 of them. Why isn't there a single one? Chen Shui frowned and put down the last book that introduced the dual cultivation technique. More than 10,000 books on dual cultivation techniques covered all kinds of aspects that Chen Shui couldn't think of. Most of them were in the primordial soul realm and creation realm, but none of them were helpful. This made Chen Shui feel strange. After all, Cold Plum Hall was one of the main halls of Wuji Immortal Palace. Although it didn't dare to say that it was the most comprehensive, it was at least one of the best in the entire central mainland. Idiot! Why didn't I think of this? Chen Hao's soul is severely injured now, and he has fallen into a deep soul self-healing state. This is an illness. I should start with the healing manuals. Suddenly, an idea flashed in Chen Shui's mind. Her beautiful eyes emitted 2 rays of light, and her figure flashed as she rushed to the healing manuals section. Physical injuries, meridians injuries, internal organs injuries, soul injuries. Here. Hiss. After seeing the section for soul injuries, Chen Shui rushed over excitedly. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Chapter 468. Hiss, 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 ah. In the palace, Chen Hao was lying flat on the bed. Judging from his appearance and aura, he was already a corpse in the eyes of ordinary people. Even if the masters of the practice world invaded his mind to sense, they could only determine that Chen Hao's soul had not dissipated. No one knew what kind of pain Chen Hao was suffering in the depths of his mind. Even the old deity and the treasure-hunting sword spirit did not know. Burning one's lifespan was burning one's life and soul. The soul was the ruler of intelligent life and the foundation of a practitioner. What was talent? Talent included the quality of the body and the quality of the soul. The higher the quality of the body, the stronger the defensive and offensive power of the practitioner in the same realm, and the more powerful the Dharma power. The immortal body was the best quality body. But the quality of the soul was what really determined how far a practitioner could go. When a practitioner was a low-level warrior until the peak of the creation realm, the advantage of the quality of the body was obvious. The quality of the soul was relatively weak. But after the creation realm and the human immortal realm, the quality of the soul would be prominent. It was also the most important factor after the celestial prime realm. The stronger the soul, the greater the potential. Because the stronger the soul's endurance, comprehension, state of mind, willpower, etc. would be, and the greater the potential. This was the fundamental reason why Xia Lingfeng and the others did not want Qin Shui to reveal Chen Hao's soul injury. After the celestial prime realm, how much potential could a person whose soul was seriously injured have? Moreover, Chen Hao was only at the initial stage of the creation realm. If his soul was not injured, they believed that with Chen Hao's talent, he would definitely be able to step into the human immortal realm. But now, it was hard to predict. Hiss, 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 accompanied by Chinhao's crazy roars, the horrible pain of crushing his soul into powder almost made Chinhao faint again and again. What's going on? The backlash of burning one's lifespan would not be like this. I have to stay awake, I have to stay awake. Once I faint, I will die. Die. I cannot die. Chinhao had never thought that such a strange situation would occur. According to the records of the Great Devouring Technique, the price he had to pay for using this secret technique was that his soul had been severely damaged. At most, he would fall into a state of self-recovery and sleep for a very long time. However, the moment he fell into a deep sleep, his mind underwent a tremendous change. His soul seemed to have solidified and appeared in an endless dark space. From time to time, a terrifying golden light would rise up. Every time this happened, it felt like his soul was being torn apart. This kind of pain was 100 times, 1,000 times more intense than any pain he had ever experienced before. In the beginning, Chinhao clenched his teeth and was able to bear it. However, as time passed, the soul-crushing pain became more and more intense. No matter how determined Chinhao was, he could not help but burst out with painful howls. Even though Chinhao didn't know why he'd fallen into such a state, he was very clearly aware that once he fell unconscious, it meant that his will had collapsed and his soul had dispersed. Then, he would die without a doubt. No one could stop him, and no one could save him. He had tried to contact the old god and the treasure hunter sword spirit, but his soul and mind were imprisoned in this boundless darkness and could not send out any messages. The only thing he could rely on was himself. Pang! Rumble, the inconceivably terrifying golden light erupted again and instantly bombarded the depths of Chinhao's soul. Like an outbreak of a plague, it spread to every strand of Chinhao's mind. Pain, endless pain, once again bombarded Chinhao's soul and turned it into fine powder. Gather! 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 Gather for me! The remnant will frantically rang out in Chinhao's mind. The moment the golden light disappeared, the dissipated soul began to gather again. This was the nirvana of the soul and the reorganization of the will. It played out again and again in Chinhao's mind. Without the concept of time and space, every minute and every second felt as long as billions of years. Every time Chinhao gathered, he felt as if he had experienced billions of years. However, the soul that he had painstakingly gathered with his life was instantly destroyed by the terrifying golden light again. It was as if billions of years of pain were endless. When he couldn't bear it anymore, his soul would be annihilated again. Again and again, the remnant will he could leave became weaker and weaker, and the speed of gathering became slower and slower. Chinhao didn't know how many times he could bear it, but he knew that if this continued, there would be a day when he would truly turn into dust and never wake up again. No, no, absolutely not. If this continues, how long can I hold on? I don't know what's going on, but I know that this is the most severe test I've ever faced. I can feel that my will is becoming more and more determined. If I can wake up, my mental cultivation will definitely improve tremendously, but the premise is that I can hold on. What should I do? What should I do? Should I just passively endure it? Should I just wait for death? There must be a way. Chinhao roared in his mind when he began to endure the golden light again. Let him be strong, a gentle breeze brushes the hills, perfection is like water. Among the 3,000 great ways, various mysteries of cultivating the state of mind began to appear in Chinhao's mind. While enduring the crushing pain of his soul, he sought a way to break through the shackles of his mind. He wanted to transcend. Only by transcending this pain, overlooking it, and ignoring it, could he survive this tribulation. Unfortunately, after experiencing it countless times, Chinhao found that his thinking was too naive. This was a kind of pain that came from the depths of his soul. It was a real pain that wouldn't be transferred by his will. Spiritual transcendence such as awe, Q and so on had no effect at all. How could it be possible to transcend? The only thing he could do was to endure it. If I can't resist, then I'll close my eyes and enjoy it. Come on more fiercely. Pain. Isn't it just pain? I, Chen Hao, will never be defeated by you. Ah. Again and again, his body was crushed and condensed. The obsession to survive and the arrogance in his heart made him persevere and not give up. Every time his soul was crushed into powder, Chen Hao's remaining will became weaker and weaker, but he was able to persevere every time. No, it wasn't perseverance, but to enjoy without any distractions. To enjoy the pain, to face the pain head-on, to resist the pain. He was no longer running away, no longer dodging. Instead, he was facing the pain seriously and without any distractions. This was a completely perverted behavior, but Chen Hao had really achieved it without any distractions, to the point of becoming crazy. Completely immersed in this state, he didn't feel anything except pain. There was only endless pain and endless suffering. In this state, he didn't realize that every time his soul was reorganized, there was a very subtle change in his soul. It was a very small change that couldn't be noticed if one didn't pay attention. But at this moment, if Chen Hao seriously compared his soul at the beginning with the soul that had been crushed and reorganized countless times, he would find that there was a shocking gap. Similarly, every time his will was crushed, it seemed to be getting weaker and weaker, but it was becoming more and more condensed and firm like the soul that was being reorganized. Time passed day by day. Chen Hao, who was in a strange state, had no sense of time at all. He didn't have time to think or consider, and the pain he suffered became greater and greater. There was only one obsession in his mind, and that was to survive. For his parents, for his brothers and sisters, for his beloved woman, for his brothers and sisters, and for all the people he couldn't let go of, he had to survive. For his obsession, the obsession of immortality, the obsession of stepping onto the peak of martial arts, he had to survive. How could he die? How could he die? No, it still doesn't work. Why? Why isn't there any reaction? Chen Shui, Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu, Tan Tai Lian, and the Leng sisters, after Chen Shui had tried all the methods to deal with soul injuries, their mood became worse and worse, and they became more and more nervous. He has been unconscious for 20 days now, what should we do? Chen Shui looked at the girls and asked helplessly. There were only 5 days left before the Boundless Continent's Elite Academy's qualifiers would officially begin. In 2 days, they would set off. But now, Chen Hao still didn't have any improvement. Even if they used some methods to make Chen Shui and the rest extremely embarrassed, there was no effect. Even the violent, masculine wind powder had been used. Masculine wind powder, as the name suggested, rejuvenated a man's masculinity. It was a famous evil medicine in the world of cultivation. Any man, as long as he wasn't dead, even if he was in a vegetative state, as long as he took the masculine wind powder, he would be able to stimulate the most primitive desires from the inside out. According to the information that Chen Shui had seen in the secret arts library, if one wanted to wake Chen Hao up, one could use the masculine wind powder to let his body erupt with the most primitive desires from the inside out, regardless of the soul. As long as one could do this and use the dual cultivation absolute art, there would be a high chance of awakening Chen Hao's soul. This was a dual cultivation absolute art that combined the physical body and stimulated the fusion of soul and flesh. But after feeding Chen Hao the masculine wind powder, his physical body was like a corpse, and there was no reaction at all. It made it impossible for them to continue even if they wanted to give themselves to him. He hasn't woken up yet? Just when the 6 girls were at their wits' end, the voice of Senior Immortal Han Mei suddenly appeared in their ears. Immediately, Senior Immortal Han Mei and Senior Immortal Yun Wei appeared in front of the 6 girls. No, the 6 girls' expressions changed as they hurriedly responded. It's really strange. The 6 of you have been sneaking around these few days. What's going on? And little Shui, you've been reading the secret manual in the soul injury area these few days. What's going on? Could it be that Chen Hao's soul is severely injured? You want to wake him up? Senior Immortal Han Mei looked at Chen Shui and frowned. Tell me, what's going on? don't think that we can't tell. You must be hiding something. Now, if you don't tell me, I'll have to use force. Chapter 469. In these 10 days, Venerable Han Mei and Venerable Yun Wei were equally anxious. As the qualifiers approached, if Qin Hao didn't wake up, they would miss this opportunity. This wasn't something they wanted to see. Moreover, the sneaky actions of Chen Shui and the other 5 had been noticed by both of them. Unfortunately, both of them had captured Jiang Hai, Huang Wenxiu and the rest to interrogate them. They had even sent people to the eastern continent to investigate the situation, but they didn't find anything. However, their instincts told them that they were hiding something. There were still 2 days before they had to set off. Both of them couldn't help but come to the palace where Qin Hao was and began to interrogate Qin Shui and the other 5. Mother, we really don't know, Still lying? Do you really want him to miss this qualifiers? Do you know how big of a loss it would be to enter Elite Academy X a year later? Venerable Han Mei stared at Qin Shui and said seriously, although the qualifiers of Elite Academy X are held every year, there is only one important opportunity every 60 years. If you miss this year, unless Qin Hao can step into the immortal realm, you will have to wait another 60 years. Is this the result you want? Hearing Venerable Han Mei's words, the 6 girls were shocked. After looking at each other, Qin Shui took a deep breath and asked, Mother, what's the situation in Elite Academy X? All you need to know is that the qualifiers this time are very important. Are you going to speak or not? Venerable Han Mei said sternly. So, we thought that his soul was severely injured, so we didn't dare to tell you. We were afraid that you would. Qin Shui knew that she couldn't hide it anymore. We were afraid that you would give up on him. But now, I've checked all the secret manuals on soul injuries. Even the most serious soul injury would at most sleep for 10 days before waking up. But it's already been 20 days, and we've used all kinds of methods, but we still couldn't wake him up. Soul injury? As expected. No wonder all of you hid it. When Venerable Han Mei and Venerable Yun Wei heard Qin Shui's words, they were enlightened. However, they weren't surprised. Obviously, both of them had already guessed the reason. Tell me, what's going on? What did Qin Hao tell you before he fell into a coma? At that time, Soul Fighter Mo used his secret technique, and faced the threat of Noda Xie, a half-step human immortal. Qin Hao, he had no choice but to secretly burn 800 years of his life. What? The 2 venerables widened their eyes in shock. They had guessed that Qin Hao's soul had been severely damaged and that he must have used a secret technique to burn his lifespan. However, they had never imagined that he had burned his lifespan for 800 years. What did 800 years mean? A manifestation realm cultivator only had a lifespan of 1,000 years. Burning 800 years of his lifespan was equivalent to destroying 4/5 of his soul. How could he possibly recover from such a heavy injury? He said, it won't affect him too much. Mother, Apotheosis Yun Wei, I believe that Qin Hao won't be affected too much. You can't ignore him, Master, Qin Hao will be fine. Even if his soul is injured, he will still be stronger than us. Master, shut up. The 2 venerables' expressions became extremely ugly as they shouted at the 6 women. Apotheosis Han Mei was so angry that her lips were trembling. She stared at Qin Shui and the others and said, Why, didn't you stop him? Mother, we only knew about it after the event, bastard. Bastard. Just because of the immortal Tao in the eastern continent, just because of such a small matter, he risked his life. 800 years of lifespan, that's 800 years of lifespan. Sigh, it's too late to say anything now. Apotheosis Han Mei, this kid is too young. If we were his age, I'm afraid we would have done the same thing. What a pity. Apotheosis Yun Wei shook her head and said, her eyes full of disappointment. Seeing the 2 venerables' expressions, Qin Shui, Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu, Tan Tai Lian, and the two beautiful sisters suddenly revealed a look of horror. The way they looked at the two venerables also changed. Although the two of them had yet to reveal Chen Hao's final fate, Chen Shui and the others were already aware of it. It seemed, just as Xia Lingfeng had said, the world of cultivation was a cruel place. When a genius became mediocre, he would lose everything he had. This was the merciless Tao. Mother, Master, there's no need to say anything. We know what you're worried about. Things have already reached this stage. Even we can't do anything about it. Even if he's a genius, he won't be able to recover from such a serious injury to his soul. Even if he can wake up, I'm afraid he won't be able to step into the human celestial realm in this lifetime. This also means that he only has a little more than 100 years left. Impossible. Mother, you can't judge Chen Hao by an ordinary person's standards. He's definitely not as simple as you think. As long as he's a human, no matter how talented he is, he won't be able to escape the restrictions of the heavenly Tao. Mother knows how you feel about him, but that's the truth. Don't worry, whether it's me or Apotheosis Yunwei, we won't give up on him. We can tell you now that as long as you can enjoy the treatment, we'll give it to him as well. After all, since he started cultivating until now, strictly speaking, we've never helped him or provided him with anything. Mother's only worry is that he can't accept the reality. All of you work hard. Mother promises to give him the best treatment as a core disciple of Cold Plum Hall. As long as he needs it, we'll treat him the same as you. No. I believe in him. Mother, do you know how he got those spiritual treasure sets? Do you know where he got those precious refining materials from? You don't know. None of you know. He's definitely not someone you can imagine, definitely not. Chen Shui's beautiful little face turned cold. Although her mother didn't act like what Xia Lingfeng said, her words all revealed that she had given up on Chen Hao. Even the promised treatment was because of them. This made Chen Shui extremely sad. She knew Chen Hao very well, and she knew his character very well. She could imagine what decision Chen Hao would make if he was faced with such a situation after he woke up. Relying on his own woman to get pity? Was that still Chen Hao? We know that he has secrets. Little Shui, Mother knows how you feel about him, and I also know that he used to be a monstrous talent, but... Apotheosis Yunwei paused for a while and said, all right, let's put this matter aside for now. There are 2 more days before we depart. What you should do now is to adjust your mentality and prepare for the selection competition of Elite Academy X. This is a rare opportunity for you. That's right. When Chen Hao will wake up, and what kind of situation he will be in when he wakes up, we can't predict at all. We can only wait. Apotheosis Yunwei said. If he wakes up, I will participate in the competition. If he doesn't, I won't go either. Chen Shui shook her head and said. Me too. Me too. Helian Wuzi and the other 4 said one after another. Their expressions were firm and unshakable. Nonsense. Could it be that all of you are giving up just because of him? If it wasn't for the special situation this year, it would be fine. At most, we can wait for another year. But if we miss this year, we will have to wait for another 60 years. Apotheosis Yunwei, who was usually not angry, couldn't help but reprimand when she saw Helian Wuzi and the others like this. Don't you all believe in Chen Hao? If he recovers, how long do you think you can stay with him? What's the point of waiting for him? It's fine if he can't recover, but what if he recovers? Can your talent be compared to his? If you don't work hard now and miss this opportunity, once he recovers, the gap between you and him will be even bigger. One day, he will leave you far behind. Apotheosis Han Mei said coldly, whether it's for him or for yourself, you'd better think about it carefully. Give me an answer tonight. If you insist, Apotheosis Yunwei and I will not stop you. Humph. Yunwei, let's go. Hiss. After the 2 celestial primes finished speaking, they left the palace at the same time, leaving the 6 women in a daze. Rumble. Ah. Old deity. In the depths of Chen Hao's mind, when a stalwart figure approached a dark light spot, it suddenly shone with a bright golden light. Almost in an instant, the stalwart figure was blasted away. Not far away, another figure screamed in horror. Hiss! Hiss! Mysterious fluctuations floated in Chen Hao's mind. After an hour, the stalwart figure condensed again, his face full of shock. The stalwart figure was the old deity. How could this be? How could it be so terrifying? Upon hearing the old deity's words, the treasure hunter sword spirit asked nervously, "Old deity, what's going on?" "I don't know. With my current mental cultivation base, I can't even get close to it. In an instant, just an instant, my mental cultivation base was blasted away and crushed into powder. If I were a soul, I'm afraid my soul would have been destroyed." Ah. Then, Chen Hao, even though I've only activated a tiny bit of my current mental strength, it's still at the peak of the worldly immortal realm, yet it was actually unable to withstand a single blow. If I'm not wrong, then the mental attack created by this black dot is at least at the initial stage of the earthly immortal realm. Moreover, Chen Hao is trapped within it. Inconceivable, inconceivable. Such a strange situation is something that even my previous masters have never encountered. Could it be that it's because Chen Hao's soul is comparatively special? The old deity muttered to himself with a shocked expression as though he did not hear the treasure hunter sword spirit's question. It must be. His soul was originally the fusion of 2 lifetimes, and one of them was even cultivated through heaven-defying technological means. Such a soul had probably transcended beyond the cycle of reincarnation and wasn't part of the origin. In addition, the fusion of 2 souls had caused his soul to mutate. Such a mutated soul, after suffering a great soul injury, would begin to repair itself, evolve, or even fuse further. It must be so. That must be the case. Chapter 470. The old god was Chen Hao's biggest secret. The old god had traveled the starry sky with his powerful master for generations. He had seen a lot of things. However, the black dot in front of him was something he had never heard of or seen before. His ability was improved as he merged with Chen Hao. Before Chen Hao surpassed his peak state, the old god would always be 1 stage higher than Chen Hao. Only in this way could he carry out the intention of the inheritance and guide and protect Chen Hao. However, at this moment, the old god who was at the peak of the later stage of the human celestial stage was destroyed by a small black dot in Chen Hao's mind. He couldn't even get close to it, let alone go deep into it to check on Chen Hao's condition. This was unbelievable. How could he not be shocked? This meant that Chen Hao had completely broken the shackles of the strongest inheritance he carried, and had broken free from the restraints of the old god's inheritance. This was because his state of mind, soul, and willpower had clearly surpassed the realm that the old god could display. Otherwise, Chen Hao's soul should have dissipated, and not be immersed in this state of self-isolation and complete restraint. Old god, old god? The treasure-hunting sword spirit couldn't help but ask again. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. This state is definitely not the state that a soul injury should be in. Once he wakes up, his state of mind, soul, and will be greatly improved. He has transcended. As long as he wakes up. Old god. What do you mean? Even though I don't know exactly what sort of state he's in right now, I'm sure he's definitely enduring boundless pain. This is a form of tempering of the soul, will, and state of mind. That boundless pressure is sufficient to crush a peak human immortal. He's still persisting. If he's able to endure it, then he'll absolutely obtain a shocking improvement. If he fails, fail? Yes, fail. If he fails, he'll be consigned to eternal damnation. You and I will enter the reincarnation cycle again and wait for the next opportunity. Are you serious? It's so serious. Is there any way to help him? Old God, I don't want to fall into endless darkness and wait again. There's no way. Now he can only rely on himself. The only thing we can do is to pray that he can hold on. His aura is still growing. Even though it's very slow, compared to 20 days ago, he's already a few realms stronger. I really don't know how long he'll be able to sustain this for. Sigh. Fortune and misfortune come hand in hand. Whether it's fortune or misfortune, it all depends on him. No matter what, there is still a chance of survival. This is the law of the heavenly Tao. I hope he can grasp it. Old God said with uncertainty. Even though Chen Hao had never disappointed him before, the change this time was too sudden, too violent, and too unimaginable. Chen Hao, who was only at the creation realm, was immersed in a pressure that could instantly destroy the mind of a peak human immortal. What sort of concept was this? Moreover, this pressure was still slowly increasing. Although the rate of increase was becoming slower and slower, it showed no signs of stopping. This meant that as time passed, it would definitely increase to an even more terrifying level. Could Chen Hao hold on? When will it end? Old God couldn't be sure, and no one could be sure. What should we do? The women were at their wits' end. Venerable Han Mei's last words were like a wake-up call to the 6 women's hearts. They had been immersed in the state of worrying about Chen Hao, which made them forget the tension that had once been hidden in the depths of their hearts. Yes, it was tension. Chen Hao's heaven-defying talent and abnormal combat strength, although he was in the same realm as them, had far exceeded their understanding. Chen Shui and the others had realized this a long time ago. It was precisely because of this that every single one of them was working hard and doing their best to improve themselves and become stronger. However, the gap between them and Chen Hao was still growing larger and larger. Just like what Venerable Han Mei had said, if this continued, one day, they would become Chen Hao's baggage and affect Chen Hao's development. At that time, although Chen Hao would not abandon them, it was impossible for them to be together all the time. Just like Moue, Yang Fan, and the others, at this moment, they had been left far behind. With Chen Hao's character, how could he be willing to be ordinary? No matter how good Chen Hao was to them, he would not deliberately slow down his pace because of them. Similarly, they would not let themselves become a burden to Chen Hao. Believe in him. He will be fine. In that case. When everyone looked at Chen Shui took a deep breath and said with determination in her eyes, "We will participate in the preliminaries. We must become stronger. Sister Shui is right, we must become stronger." Xia Yuyu said. "But, he needs us to maintain his energy. If we participate in the competition, we must bring him along." Tan Tai Lian looked at Chen Hao who was in a coma. Buzz, ah. What the 6 women did not expect was that as soon as Tan Tai Lian finished speaking and everyone looked at Chen Hao, a majestic and pure energy fluctuation suddenly gushed out from Chen Hao's body. The 6 women exclaimed at the same time and their expressions became unusually excited. Hiss 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 hiss. Chen Hao. How. The 6 people rushed to Chen Hao's side and shouted excitedly. "Hello." An unfamiliar and old voice resounded in the 6 women's ears at the same time. It was a voice transmission and not a voice. Who is it? Who is it? The 6 women were startled at the same time and looked around vigilantly, protecting Chen Hao in the middle. Don't be surprised, I have known you for a long time. It's just that you don't know me. I am the spirit of an inherited treasure that Master obtained. You can call me treasure hunting. Oh, my master is Chen Hao. This master has not woken up yet and will not wake up for the time being. It should take a period of time. Maybe a month, maybe a year, maybe even longer. As for when he will wake up, I am not sure. You don't have to worry too much. Master has fallen into a strange state. The injury to his soul no longer exists. No one can help him. You will only affect him if you are here. I can help Master recover his energy, so you don't have to worry. Just don't let anyone disturb Master. The voice of treasure hunting sword spirit resounded in the 6 women's minds again. Treasure hunt. Chen Hao, he. What's going on? What state is he in? I don't know, and no one can know. Even the strongest people in the boundless world can't know. I can only tell you that if Master wakes up, although he will still be in the blessed realm, his mental cultivation will reach an unbelievable realm. If you want what is good for Master, then work hard in your cultivation. I don't want you to be a burden to Master. Treasure hunting sword spirit said bluntly, a long time ago, Master chose a cultivation technique for all of you. I will teach it to all of you now. While Master is in this state, all of you have to work hard to improve. Otherwise, even though Master cares about all of you, he will eventually go further and further away. Is he dangerous? Chen Shui asked with a frown. He is not dangerous. How can there be danger? All of you just have to work hard in your cultivation and do your best to improve yourselves. Treasure hunting sword spirit said. No. Chen Shui said, you are lying. Cough cough. How can I lie? I am telling the truth. Alright, if you work hard in your cultivation and improve yourselves, you will be helping Master to the greatest extent. That's all I have to say. I am just a wisp of divine consciousness, and I can't hold on any longer. After treasure hunting sword spirit finished speaking, it directly cut off the mental connection with the 6 women and escaped into the depths of Chen Hao's mind with a forehead full of sweat. Then, it was met with the old god's scolding for not being able to do such a trivial thing. Wait! Chen Shui said in a panic. Unfortunately, treasure hunting sword spirit did not dare to give her another chance. No matter how the 6 of them called out, there was no reply. Chen Hao is in danger. He is definitely in danger, Sister Shui, how do you know? Didn't treasure hunting say that there is no danger? He said that he doesn't know what state Chen Hao is in. Also, he said that if Chen Hao can wake up. What does that mean? It means that he is not sure if Chen Hao can wake up. Then what should we do? There is no other way. I already knew that his body contained a secret, but I didn't expect it to be an artifact spirit. An artifact spirit is connected to its master's mind. If the artifact spirit doesn't know what is going on, what can we do? What treasure hunting said is right. We should use all our strength to improve our realm and strength, and not do meaningless waiting. Because, we believe in Chen Hao. We believe that he will definitely wake up. Let's go find Master. Oh, don't tell anyone about treasure hunting's appearance. We only need to know. My mother and your master are not as heartless as sect leader Xia said, but, the cultivation world is cruel, this is the truth. As long as we are strong enough, Master and the rest will definitely fulfill their promise to us. Chen Hao will wake up, he definitely will. Hiss hiss hiss, limitless immortal palace, Winter Plum Hall's core region. On top of a majestic mountain peak, a terrifying energy fluctuation appeared in the void. In a radius of 10,000 miles, heaven and earth's spiritual energy surged violently and surged towards this majestic mountain peak. The tribulation cloud spanned 1,000 miles, emitting a terrifying aura. Countless disciples of Winter Plum Hall stared at the 2 figures standing on the mountain peak, their eyes filled with envy. Senior Huan and Senior Lei will definitely succeed, of course. I just don't know if the 2 of them will be like Senior Chen Shui, Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu, and Tantai Lian from Yunwei Hall, and succeed in resisting the heavenly punishment. After all, they practice demonic arts. Although they have joined Winter Plum Hall, compared to Limitless Demon Palace, our demonic arts are still lacking. In addition, the 2 of them are telepathic and triggered the heavenly punishment at the same time. Just looking at this aura, it is not inferior to Senior Chen Shui's heavenly punishment that shocked the cultivation world. Yes. 10 years, they have only been in Elite Academy for 10 years, and they have already triggered the heavenly punishment. This is too shocking. It is said that the 6 of them are all first-class figures in Elite Academy. Chapter 471. They succeeded in resisting the divine punishment. Phew. Our Winter Plum Hall has 2 more young and powerful celestial primes. Good. Good. Countless disciples of Winter Plum Hall and Friendship Hall, Rue Weaver Hall, stared from afar at the beautiful sisters of the Leng clan who were enveloped in a ball of auspicious light. They were all filled with envy and excitement. It's been 10 years, in the void, Han Mei's face was filled with relief. But when she saw the sisters rushing towards that palace, a trace of sadness appeared between her brows. Yes, it's been 10 years. 10 years ago, the 6 of them passed the selection and became disciples of Elite Academy X. Only Xiao Shui and Xiao Wu obtained the membership of Vast Universe Galaxy. I thought Yu Yu and the rest would have to wait for at least 60 years, but they all did it in 10 years. The membership of Vast Universe Galaxy was an extremely rare opportunity for the boundless continent. It was the dream of tens of thousands of genius disciples in Elite Academy X. But the quota was pitifully small. Every 60 years, the boundless continent could only obtain 1,000 quotas. These 1,000 quotas were obtained through layers of selection. The competition was extremely fierce. Without extremely high talent, it was impossible to obtain it. Any disciple who could obtain it in Elite Academy was definitely a demon-level genius. After all, the disciples of Elite Academy X who had accumulated for thousands of years were all in the creation realm. Once they broke through to the immortal realm, they would automatically leave Elite Academy X and become the celestial primes of the boundless continent. To be able to obtain it in the creation realm was definitely the highest honor in the boundless continent. 10 years ago, Qin Shui, who had a strong soul, relied on her terrifying battle strength and the platinum sky-splitting slash of the Great Five Elements art. After passing the Elite Academy selection, she fought her way to the 436th place in the Elite Academy and obtained the qualifications. Helian Wuzi relied on the most mysterious 100 reincarnation strength between heaven and earth and fought her way to the 639th place, similarly obtaining the qualifications. As for Xia Yuyu, Tan Tai Lian, the Leng sisters, Jiang Hai, Huang Wenxiu, Hu Yan Aobua, and Meng Xiao, although the 8 of them passed the selection of Elite Academy X, they were not in the top 1,000. Shi Wang, Jing Tiangang, Beili Liancheng, and the rest did not even pass the selection. They only became members of Elite Academy X in the 2nd year. In the world of cultivation, it was an extremely long process from the creation realm to the human immortal realm. Many cultivators, or to be exact, 99.9% of cultivators, were stuck at the peak of the late stage of the creation realm. They could not even reach the half-step human immortal realm, let alone the human immortal realm. Just like the sect masters and grand elders of the 3 sects in the eastern continent, if they did not encounter a powerful fortuitous encounter in their lives, the creation realm would be their final destination. It was the same in the central continent. Even the gathering place of the boundless continent's most talented disciples, the Boundless Elite Academy, was no exception. There were many disciples who had entered the Elite Academy who had been stuck in the manifestation realm for decades or even close to 100 years. Because of this, in the eyes of exalted Han Mei and exalted Yun Wei, if Xia Yuyu's group of 4 wanted to obtain the qualifications to become a member of Vast Universe Star River, they would have to wait at least 60 years for a new round of qualifications. However, in just a short 10 years, they had officially obtained it by ascending to the human immortal stage. Anyone in the boundless world, once they stepped into the worldly immortal realm, would immediately obtain the qualifications to become a member of the Vast Universe Galaxy. This was the most basic way to obtain it, and it was also the way most people obtained it. Only the Elite Academy's qualifying battle, which was held once every 60 years, would allow those in the Destiny realm to obtain it in advance. In these 10 years, the Eastern Continent's immortal Tao's fate has gathered, and countless talented disciples have emerged. Especially those who are related to him, their progress is even more shocking. You've really profited. Exalted Han Mei said. He. My Hall Master Yun Wei is in charge of the Eastern Continent's immortal Tao. It's useless even if you're envious. Back then, I didn't fight with you for Xiao Shui and him, Proud Skies members have also been placed under your name. What you've obtained isn't any less than me. Moreover, in these 10 years, those few guys have made Proud Sky famous, and even the palace master has noticed. Han Mei, I have a feeling. What? I believe you should have felt it too. Otherwise, you wouldn't have specially mentioned those who are related to him, right? Exalted Han Mei frowned slightly and said, yes, I felt it, but I can't be sure. After all, Xiao Shui, Xiao Wu, and the others are all from the Eastern Continent's immortal Tao. Moreover, those who are related to him are also related to Xiao Shui and the others. You have to know that although 10 years have passed, which one of Xiao Shui and the others isn't thinking about him? Whether it's because of his fate, can you be sure? That's true. Oh right, among the applicants for this year's Elite Academy selection competition, it's said that there's an Eastern Continent's Demon Tao disciple. Eastern Continent's Demon Tao disciple? This isn't strange. The rise of the Eastern Continent's immortal Tao means that the Eastern Continent's Demon Tao disciple's fate would naturally increase. Wouldn't the Demon Tao disciple be half a foot taller? For the future of the boundless continent, the three palace masters wouldn't let one family dominate. But when that Demon Tao disciple stepped into the central continent, he was already at the peak of a half-step human immortal. Peak of a half-step human immortal? Exalted Han Mei was slightly shocked. That's right. This is what's really shocking. Under the restrictions of the Eastern Continent's heavenly Tao, even if one could advance to a half-step human immortal, he would definitely be near the end of his lifespan and have cultivated some heaven-defying evil techniques. For example, Oda Shiqing, who failed to pass the tribulation a few years ago. But the disciple who signed up this time has an extremely young life force, similar to Xiao Shui and the others. When he just stepped into the central continent, he displayed an extremely heaven-defying battle prowess. It's said that he has already attracted the favor of the limitless Demon Palace Master. Compared to Qin Hao, his talent and battle prowess are even stronger, comparable to a human immortal. He's known as the monstrous genius of the boundless continent. Even our palace master and the Demon Palace Master are envious of him. What's his name? Feng Handong, the disciple of the limitless Demon Palace, gave him the title, Invincible East. He joined the Broken Heart Palace of the limitless Demon Palace. During the assessment of his strength, he defeated 3 experts of the initial stage of the human immortal realm. He's known as the Invincible One under the human immortal realm. Even the top geniuses of the Elite Academy can't be compared to him. What's even more envious is that this person originally had a handsome face with sword scars on his face, each of which contained the undying sword will. But after he was favored by the palace master of the limitless Demon Palace, he actually comprehended the undying sword way, which made the sword scars on his face disappear. He became a handsome young man, and then he was favored by the daughter of the palace master of the limitless Demon Palace's direct descendant, Wan Nanxia. He soared to the sky. Wan Nanxia. Cough cough. Han Mei, didn't you erase that memory? I only erased the memory of being together with him, not all of it. Exalted Han Mei said. She did erase the memory of Chen Hai, but it was only the memory that was engraved in her heart. It didn't mean that she had erased everything. Wan Nanxia was the favored daughter of the demonic sect, and she used to be one of her rivals in love. If she had heard this name before, she would have been angry. But now, she could deal with it calmly. Love was gone, so why would she be angry? Why did he join the Broken Heart Palace? I'm also curious about this. With Fan Suixin's hatred for us, I'm afraid that this preliminaries. Hearing Exalted Yun Wei's words, Han Mei frowned. In the past 10 years, although the disciples of Han Mei Palace and Yun Wei Palace performed well in every elite academy's preliminaries, many of them were seriously injured or even killed. This was all because of Qin Hao. Back then, the genius disciples of Limitless Demon Palace that were killed by Qin Hao belonged to several palaces of Limitless Demon Palace. How could they not hate him? And anyone who was related to Qin Hao would suffer the most severe revenge. Fortunately, the 2 exalted immortals were not to be trifled with. The girls, Huyen Albua, and the rest also did not disappoint. Even if they were seriously injured, they made the other party their training target. No one died. But it was different this time. Fang Handong's strength was comparable to a human immortal. Facing such a powerful existence, what could the disciples of the two palaces do, no matter how talented they were? As long as they met him, they might die in his hands without any chance to resist. Greetings to Master, Uncle Master. Hiss. Just when Venerable Han Mei and Venerable Yun Wei were having a headache over the upcoming Elite Academy's qualifiers, the beautiful sisters came to the front of the two of them and bowed down. In the past 10 years, as the friendship between Han Mei and exalted Yun Wei deepened, the two palaces were no longer separated. As for the other core disciples, they no longer addressed each other as exalted immortals. When do you plan to depart? Han Mei Immortal Venerable smiled and asked the two. 3 days later, it will be the Academy's challenge. At that time, we will go with Master and Uncle Master. Leng Ninglu said. We will go back to Heavenly Mist City and visit our family. The two of them had already stepped into the human immortal realm. Now, they only needed to report to the Elite Academy and they would be qualified to step out of the Wuji Star. Once they left, they did not know how many years it would take for them to return. All right. Master will send someone to bring you back. After you leave, Master will seal Qinhao's palace. If there is any news, Master will inform you immediately. Work hard. Okay. We will. The sisters said firmly. It had been 10 years. In the past 10 years, other than the 6 of them, only Han Mei and Yun Wei could enter Qinhao's palace. They went in with anticipation and came out with disappointment. In the past 10 years, Qinhao did not change at all and there were no signs of him waking up. Luckily, the treasure-hunting sword spirit would appear from time to time to comfort and encourage them. Otherwise, they would be in despair. Under the protection of 10 experts at the peak of the late human immortal realm, the Leng sisters returned to Heavenly Mist City. In the past 10 years, due to the rise of the Leng sisters in the central continent, the Leng family had become a powerful existence in Heavenly Mist City. What made the two of them even more embarrassed was that they actually had an uncle, the flesh and blood of their grandfather, and he was very talented. This allowed the two of them to easily obtain Leng Kongye's permission and made the oath between Leng Kongye and Qinhao a joke. Let's go. 3 days later, Han Mei, Yun Wei, and the sisters led the hundreds of disciples from the 2 halls who had registered for the competition and stepped into the sacred land of the central continent, Wuji Elite Academy. If Qinhao saw 2 of them, he would definitely be incomparably gratified. They were Qin Nan and Qin Yen. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.